Thank you very much. And a warm round of applause might be in order. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can I kindly ask us to please locate our seats? I do appreciate that. If you're upstanding, can you kindly please locate your seats? Ngiyabonga. And can I also ask our delegates at the back if I could have your kind attention, please? Thank you very much. The Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and People with Disabilities of South Africa, the Honorable Sindisiwe Chikunga. I'm going to pause so that we can proceed in respectful silence. I do appreciate that so very much. Ngiyabonga. To the Minister of Small Business Development, the Honorable Stella Ndabeni. Minister, thank you for being here. The Consul General of Angola to South Africa, Her Excellency Elsa Capacho Vincete. The Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders, Nkosi Langa Mavuso. The Director General in the Department of Small Business Development, Madame Tulisile Manzini. To the SETFA Chairperson of the Social Ethics and Transformation Committee, Madame Xoliswa Taku. To the SETFA Acting CEO, Nkosi Khona Mbata. To our WECONA co-chairs, Madame Futim Toba and Madame Namhlam Niki. To all of our Deputies, Directors General that are present here this afternoon. To my brother Kizito, the CEO of 22 on Sloane, our host today, that is Mr. Kizito Okechukwu. To WECONA's Provincial Lead and Mining Sector Lead. To my media brothers and sisters, our colleagues in the room, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A very warm and humid welcome. I do understand that we have a beautiful problem this afternoon, and that's the problem of oversubscription. And it speaks volumes to the significance of the conversation this afternoon. But a big welcome to this WECONA event on the sidelines of the Mining Indaba. My name is Nozipho Shabalala, and it's an absolute privilege to be serving you today as your moderator. No one in this room needs convincing why we're gathered here. We're all here in response to the clarion call from the Women Economic Assembly alongside her partners to face up to the reality and the challenge that while mining remains one of the most significant contributors to economic activity in South Africa, to industrial development on the continent, and of course as a driver of exports out of the country, the reality is many women continue to face market and financial barriers that not only limit their participation, but at times even lock them out completely of both participation and ownership. This is a narrative that we are all familiar with that I do not need to go any further into. The opportunity this afternoon, though, is to confront this tension and this dichotomy head on, and to step into the conversational arena with the intent to make visible the practical pathways for women's economic and meaningful economic inclusion in the mining sector. And so what you will hear this afternoon is a focus on the question of what does it mean to have broader and deeper opportunities for women. When we raise the issue of funding, what does that look like in terms of the accessibility of that funding and the catalytic nature of that funding? If we locate our courage to speak to the issue of ownership, what does this look like in a sector that by its very nature has always adopted the posture of exclusion when it comes to women. And then finally, one of the issues we are going to touch on in one of the panels is how do we bring a gendered lens into this conversation such that we are able to talk about the safety of women in this sector as well. And so we're in for a treat. If we can survive the heat, we are really going to be in for a treat. The first of these is that we're going to have both our ministers top and tail the conversation. We're going to lead by leaning into the conversation that will be led by a keynote contribution from Minister Chikunga. And then we begin to work our way through our program such that we land at a place where Minister Ndabeni locates us in the lived reality of women entrepreneurs in this particular sector. But what about the middle, you might be asking? This is where the robust conversations, where we begin to push against and stress test the questions of funding, of opportunity, of safety, and that's going to be in the format of 2 back-to-back panel discussions that are going to be taking place here. So a massive thank you to our speakers whose lived experience and insight we're going to be tapping into this afternoon. Before I make way, allow me just to make the following housekeeping announcements, please. The facilities, the ladies and the gents, are out of the main doors to my left. If we need the facilities, you're more than welcome to take a breather on the balcony should you wish to do so. We're going to extend the space as best as we can. If you are looking for the Wi-Fi, you will notice that the Wi-Fi is on the various pillars in the building. Just locate a pillar and you will find the Wi-Fi there. And we want you to be online because not only do we have thousands of people who have joined us on our streaming platform, we also want to amplify this conversation as best we can. We're using the following hashtags. You might see them on the big screens on either side of the room. Hashtag WECONA, hashtag from pit to port, because that in essence is the clarion call. Hashtag women in mining and hashtag DSBD at work. I do want to then, with that, create the space for us just to anchor ourselves in the space and why we're here by inviting you to turn your attention to the screen as we take in this short audio visual on WECONA.
Welcome to Empowering Women in the Economy, the WECONA journey. In South Africa, women comprise 51% of the population, but own only 34% of formal businesses. The Women Economic Assembly, known as WECONA. Welcome to Empowering Women in the Economy, the WECONA journey. In South Africa, women comprise 51% of the population, but own only 34% of formal businesses. The Women Economic Assembly, known as WECONA, is dedicated to changing this by empowering women entrepreneurs across key sectors like agriculture, energy, and automotive. In South Africa, women's participation in the labor market is about 46%, with a significant gap in leadership positions. UN Women's Generation Equality Action Coalition highlights the critical need for economic justice and rights, aiming to increase women's economic empowerment worldwide. This segment explores the importance of procurement in fostering inclusion and transformation, and the pivotal role of economic justice initiatives. Despite numerous challenges, women are breaking barriers and leading change across various industries. In agriculture, they constitute 47% of the workforce, yet face significant obstacles, such as limited access to land and financing. With determination and support, women farmers are transforming the industry and driving sustainable growth. In the energy sector, where women represent only 17% of the workforce, they are pioneering clean energy innovations, contributing to a more sustainable future. Similarly, in the automotive industry, women hold just 21% of senior positions, but play crucial roles in shaping the future of mobility, from innovative transportation services to advancements in autonomous vehicles. Access to finance remains a major challenge, with women entrepreneurs receiving only 27% of business loans. To address this, WECONA is partnering with key stakeholders to create opportunities for women-led businesses to grow and succeed. Inclusive procurement practices and intentional support are unlocking the full potential of women in supply chains and industries. By fostering innovation, diversity, and sustainability, women play a vital role in building a more equitable economy. Together, we can continue to empower women and shape a brighter, more inclusive economic future. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Stay inspired, stay informed, and support WECONA's mission to empower women in the economy.
It also creates the space for us to reflect on the progress. So there is much to celebrate, and so I encourage you to be fully present in your celebratory posture as well today. To extend the official opening now, we have the privilege of having both of our WECONA co-chairs with us, and we're going to invite co-chair Madam Futim Toba to extend the official opening. Can we give her a round of applause, please?
Program Director, I'm going to stand on the protocol that has already been, sorry, do I need to do something? Oh, okay. I'll stand on the protocol that has been observed. However, I would like to welcome Honorable Minister of Women, Youth and Person with Disability, Ms. Sindisiwe Chikunga, Honorable Minister of Small Business Development, Ms. Stella Tembisa-Ndabeni, the Chair of the Transformation Committee, Transformation and Ethics Committee, Madam Xoliswa Dagu. In her absence, I had her here, the Board Chair of SITFA, Nonzuzo Makanda. Women of WECONA, our strategic partners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a privilege to welcome you to this WECONA Western Cape Women in Mining side event. Western Cape, otherwise we're not coming back. We convene on the margins of the Mining Indaba. This meeting of minds is not just a symbolic gathering, but a pivotal one, given the importance of the sector as we chart the course forward for greater inclusion in the sector. Advancing women's economic participation is the key driver of growth and job creation. Recent estimates by the World Bank suggests that removing barriers to women's economic participation could raise global output by 15 to 20%. This is a very recent study, and they are launching this report now, 2 weeks' time. In the research conducted by the Minerals Council, Butabelo, you are in the room, thanks for coming. In 2023 to 2024, confirmed the low procurement opportunities for women-owned businesses. Out of a total of 271 billion spent on goods and services, only 5% and 8% were spent on women-owned businesses and the goods and services, respectively, demonstrating the agency to address this situation. In addition, women account for 20% of the total workforce in the mining sector. Whilst this reflects slow but steady progress from the level as low as 3% 2 decades ago, it clearly signals that gender equity remains an unfinished business and a material concern for WECONA. The Women in Mining strategy for 2025 to 2027 has made a bold commitment towards fostering gender equity by committing to achieve 30% female representation across mining sector and ensure that 40% constitutes management roles within that time frame. Furthermore, they set a target for themselves of 40% professional procurement from women-owned businesses, with a particular focus on those that at least 50% owned by women. These promising targets remain targets and aspirational until they are fully achieved. Therefore, they require a collective action to realize and to meaningfully transform the sector and foster sustainable growth through inclusivity and innovation. It is in this spirit that we invited each of you to firstly reflect on the progress made so far. Secondly, to think through how can we solve for the barriers that limit the success of women in this sector. And thirdly, create bridges through forging collaborations to create the change we want to see. Today's theme, She Mines the Future from Pit to Port, which was carefully crafted to capture the essence of our conversation tonight, especially as we explore how we increase women participation across the entire mining value chain, from exploration, extraction, at the mining site, through to processing and beneficiation, to exploring how to leverage on the mining adjacent sectors, such as logistics. We have curated a program where the discussions will highlight: 1, viable mining and mining adjacent value chain opportunities. 2, we are aware that the Department of Transport has opened freight rail to private operators. This presents a critical opportunity to advance inclusive participation alongside the efficiency and the competitiveness that the department is aiming to achieve. I would like to acknowledge the progress made by Transnet. It is evident that we are moving forward. Industry can support Transnet to accelerate the trajectory of success. Our engagement today, however, seeks to understand whether and how opportunities arising from this reform are benefiting women-owned, led, and youth enterprises. Number 3, safety remains a major concern for women in mining. Incidents of extortion and women reportedly being asked for sexual favors in exchange for contracts continue to bedevil this sector. We will hear about safety strategies that can be adopted to end this. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, WECONA is a platform that brings diverse actors from government, the private sector, civil society, and entrepreneurs to accelerate the inclusion of women-led businesses in the industrialization of our economy through the supply chain. In a nutshell, we continue to pay particular attention to how mining houses, public sector, and state-owned entities can move beyond commitment to practical implementation that creates impact, including measurable targets, supplier development, enforcement of safety, and ethical business environment for entrepreneurs. As we gather in the Western Cape, which is not always considered a primary extraction province, particularly when compared to other regions in the country. Yet, it does host important forms of mineral activity, including industrial minerals such as limestone, silica sand, aggregates, dimension stone, coastal salt operations. More importantly, the province plays a strategic role in broader mining value chain through downstream services, environmental and engineering expertise, logistics, transport, port operations, ship services, and regional trade. This pit-to-port position makes the Western Cape a critical connector between extraction, export, and markets across the SADC region. In this broader value creation context, women participation remains strongest in the services and supply chains. But challenges persist in assessing finance, procurement opportunities, and long-term contracts that enable scale and sustainability. From discussion with business women, and from my vantage point across corporate boards, DFIs, industrial manufacturing, and policy engagement, the constraints are structural. To move women-owned businesses from the margins, South Africa must focus on structural integrations, which includes guaranteed market access, particularly through public procurement and large corporate value chains with enforceable offtakes, commitment. Patient and blended capital, combining grants, concession debt, and guarantees rather than relying on debt alone. Institutional coordination, where departments, DFI, municipalities, and regulators operate within a single delivery framework instead of parallel silos. Local industrialization pathways, but especially in the manufacturing and infrastructure, that enable small firms to participate beyond the small areas like installations and distribution. Importantly, measure, report, and celebrate progress through the Presidential Index for Inclusive Supply Chain. Without anchoring women-owned business in the real demand, support programs remain transactional and short-lived. Let me conclude by expressing my gratitude, the deepest one, to SEPFA for making this event possible. To the WECONA team for working over holiday season to date. If you look around the room and you see anyone who's sleepwalking, it's probably one of the WECONA ladies. And to my co-chair Namhla for her ability to carry everything with grace and to laugh at ourselves for wanting to do everything. And we actually do it. South Africa's challenge is no longer one of intent, but of delivery, integration, and courage to reform. If women-owned businesses are able to fulfill their roles as engine of employment and inclusive growth, the ecosystem must shift from fragmented support to coordinated, demand-led, and to scale-focused intervention. Only then will women-owned businesses move from the margin into the mainstream of the South African economy. Tulima Donzela's quote says, open quote, if you consciously choose to be a positive influence in the world, you will always find an opportunity to make a difference. I thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the things that co-chair tried to do is that she opened up with this song. Everybody got on their feet. And then she was the first one to say bop her, but nobody wanted to bop her by then. Thank you for bringing the energy, and what an appropriate song to bring into the space, a song that resembles breakthrough and progress. But more than anything, co-chair, thank you for your reminder that you've given us that we have to move from targets to transformation. We've got to move from dialogue to delivery, and that we can't just focus. We don't have the luxury of focusing on just the mining sector. We've got to look at the adjacent sectors as well and come at this particular challenge in a coordinated, demand-led, and data-driven response. Thank you very much. Let's give her a big round of applause. It's my absolute pleasure now to yield the floor to our official sponsor and to invite once again one of the people that we've acknowledged up front, and that of course is the chair of the Social Ethics and Transformation Committee, Madam Xoliswa Daku from SETFA. Let's give Madam a big round of applause.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me honorably greet our leaders that are with us, Minister Stella Ndabeni and Usisindiswa Chikunga, Minister of Women. We appreciate your presence today with all the leaders that are with us, and thanks to the Program Director as well for your outstanding leadership in front of us. Kool-Aid, we are trying to survive, the mines are keeping us busy. Thank you so much. On behalf of SETFA, I come here humbly to welcome and appreciate your presence to our call to support WECONA today. We're here as the board and management with one specific privilege: to ensure that businesses in South Africa, especially small businesses, are sustained and do grow. And the minister will be here to share that with you. We're very honored to be with you as leaders such as our wonderful DG, and Minister. She's such a wonderful DG. We appreciate your presence here, and also your finance, and as well as also the ecosystem that we have today. This gathering, as Usis Futi has said, is just about collaboration and integration. We can't do it alone. We have to do it as a team. Umanyano ngamandla kula language yasekhaya. It reflects a commitment beyond conversation to actually unlocking and practical partnerships that we want to ensure by supporting you today. Our sit-for mandate is very clear that we are here to support ideas to ensure that growth and sustainability is the way to go. We view this platform as a very important platform for further learning and co-creation. We're very proud of being the main sponsor for today, not only in terms of the financial contribution, but actually to ensure that we are able to interact and network with each other and let deals flow for small businesses, especially women-owned today. To the co-chairs, we assure you of our continued collaboration and our strength in terms of relationships that we create with structures that are led by the Department of Women. And for years ahead, we look forward to working together with you as we journey with our minister in ensuring that this sector doesn't only survive, but actually deeply sustains businesses. Without wasting time, let me actually say it again, as Mrs. Putti has said. Let us continue to thrive when things are tough. She has spoken about what happens in the mining sector, but think about the sector that we are involved in. Continue to pastor on, keep that business. Our leaders are making sure that you are creating legacy. And also do not say no to serve on governance structures, because we are here to support and ensure the South Africa that we live in it is able to build the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Daku, and thank you for the way you have reinforced one of the really powerful sound bites we've heard this afternoon, that gender equality is an unfinished business. And in your address, reminding us that the only way we get to completion is together. We appreciate your message. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our panel discussions, we are in for a treat. It's my absolute pleasure to not stand between you and the Honorable Minister Chikunga, who at this moment delivers her keynote to us. And as she comes up, just a reminder that this is an opportunity for us to anchor ourselves in the systemic and the structural challenges, and to be reminded that policy is the attempt to redefine the playing field and the arena. And so we welcome the Minister with that mandate in mind.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me recognize Minister of Small Business Development, Honorable Stella Ndabeni, co-chairpersons of WECONA, Ms. Futhi Mtoba and Ms. Namhlamniki, captains of the mining, energy and transport industries, representatives of the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources, DG of Small Business, as well as the DG of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, distinguished leaders of women-owned enterprises, development finance partners and investors, representatives of SADC and African Union, esteemed delegates, comrades and friends, good evening. I greet you today not merely as a minister of the Republic, but as a daughter of this soil. A soil that has borne the weight of injustice, and yet, through the defiance of extraordinary women, continues to yield the harvest of freedom. This year, 2026, marks 70 years, that is a platinum jubilee, since 20,000 women, mothers, grandmothers, factory workers, domestic workers, teachers and nurses marched to the union buildings on the 9th of August in 1956. They carried petitions alongside the weight of this nation on their backs. And when they stood before the seat of apartheid power, they declared with one voice, "Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo. You strike a woman, you strike a rock." Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, Sophie De Bruyn, and the thousands whose names history never recorded. These are the women on whose shoulders we stand today. Their march was not merely a protest against past laws. It was a declaration that women would no longer be footnotes in the story of liberation. To every woman in this room, we are a living continuation of that march. The road from the Union Buildings in 1956 leads directly to this convention center in Cape Town in 2026. The question is no longer whether women belong in the economy, whether women belong in the economy. The question is how rapidly we can dismantle the barriers that still hold us back from participating meaningfully in the commanding heights of this economy. Program Director, let me now turn to the magnificent endowment that lies beneath our feet. An endowment that should, by any measure of justice, be the foundation of shared prosperity for all South Africans, especially women. According to the most recent data from the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources, South Africa possesses mineral ore reserves valued at more than 2.5 trillion US dollars, with 16 commodities ranked in the top 10 internationally. We hold the world's largest known reserve of platinum group metals at 88% of global reserves. We possess 80% of the world's manganese, 72% of global chromite reserves are ours, and that is before we count our titanium, zirconium, vanadium, gold, coal, and iron ore. In terms of production, we are ranked 55th internationally in mining's contribution to GDP. At current production rates, our PGM, that is platinum group metals reserves, will last for the next 250 years. Our coal reserves for 200 years, and our gold reserves for 27 years. In 2023, the PGMs, that is platinum group metals, gold, iron ore, coal together, accounted for 81% of total mineral sales, 84% of export sales, and 87% of mining employment, with PGMs alone responsible for 40% of all mining jobs. Chrome and manganese contributed a further 14% of total sales. Program Director, this level of endowment cannot be reconciled with a nation that has some of the highest unemployment rates in the world. Why do women, who constitute 51% of our population, still face disproportionate exclusion from the sector that generates this wealth? Why do communities that sit on top of platinum and manganese deposits still lack running water? This issue is not the absence of wealth. The issue is the absence of women at the table where decisions about that wealth are made. WECONA's mandate to achieve 40% procurement from women-owned businesses is not a charitable gesture. It is an economic imperative. It is a recognition that when women participate fully in the mining value chain, from exploration to extraction, from processing to port, the entire economy benefits. Research consistently shows that gender-diverse companies outperform their peers, that women reinvest a great proportion of their earnings into their families and communities, and that inclusive economies are more resilient economies. I'm confident that this assembly will prioritize and elevate the voices of women not only as beneficiaries of mining policy, but as architects of the country's mining strategy. Women must sit on mining boards. Women must lead geological surveys. Women must own the supply chains that move our minerals from pit to port. The Women's Economic Assembly must lead the way. Program Director, we are meeting at a pivotal moment in global economic history. A race is underway, a race that will determine which nation or which nations prosper and which nations are left behind in the 21st century economy. It is the race for critical minerals. Across the world, developed and developing economies alike are scrambling to secure domestic and external supplies of critical minerals to bolster their manufacturing capacity and global competitiveness. The United States has its critical minerals strategy. The European Union has its Critical Raw Materials Act. China has spent decades building processing dominance. India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, all are in the race. And what are they racing for? They are racing for the minerals that power electric vehicles, renewable energy systems, advanced electronics, aerospace technologies, medical devices, and defense systems. They are racing for manganese, for vanadium, platinum, lithium, cobalt, graphite, titanium, and rare earth elements, minerals that South Africa and our African neighbors possess in extraordinary abundance. The upstream and downstream value chain activities for critical minerals hold enormous opportunities. Economic growth, industrial expansion, job creation, skills development, research, development, and innovation, and of course, recycling. More importantly, these minerals are poised to play a crucial role in meeting global sustainable development goals and net zero emissions commitment. Yet, and this is the urgent warning I bring to this assembly, without appropriate strategic interventions, mineral producers like South Africa could remain trapped as raw ore suppliers while most of the value is captured by major global processing and manufacturing centers. In simple terms, when we export raw manganese ore at a fraction of its processed value, we are exporting the very wealth the women of 1956 marched for. We are contradicting the Freedom Charter. We are exporting the livelihoods that could lift women-headed households out of poverty. We're exporting the tax revenue that could fund crutches and clinics in mining communities. We are, in essence, exporting our future. The criticality of minerals is determined not merely by geological abundance, but by strategic significance, technological application, and the risk of supplies disruption. South Africa is blessed with abundance, but abundance without strategy is simply a resource scarce wearing a different mask. This is precisely why women's participation in the critical minerals economy is not a secondary consideration. It is a strategic necessity. Women bring different perspectives to resource management. Women are more likely to advocate for community benefit sharing. Women entrepreneurs are often more innovative in finding niche applications and developing circular economy solutions. If we are serious about winning the critical minerals race, we cannot afford to run it with half team on the bench. Program Director, the critical minerals and metal strategy for South Africa lays out a comprehensive roadmap for the most important economic transition of our generation. The shift from being a raw mineral supplier to becoming a manufacturing hub. This transition requires moving from upstream extraction and export to downstream value addition, processing, and manufacturing. And I stand here today to declare that this transition will not succeed without the full and deliberate inclusion of women and, of course, persons with disabilities and youth. Allow me to speak a little bit to the pillars of this transformation and each point to make the case for why women must be at the center. And I hope all of us have read the strategy. The first pillar of the strategy is about beneficiation and localization. The core of our industrial strategy is beneficiation at source, processing minerals within South Africa rather than exporting raw ore. We are targeting high growth sectors, energy storage and batteries, leveraging our manganese, vanadium, nickel, and lithium to become a regional battery manufacturing hub, hydrogen and fuel cells, using our dominance in PGMs to manufacture catalyst and membrane electrodes assemblies through the Hydrogen Valley Initiative, ferroalloys and green steel production, and titanium processing for aerospace and medical applications. Every single one of these sectors represent a massive opportunity for women entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses, from manufacturing components to providing specialized logistics, from laboratory testing to digital monitoring services. The second pillar is on research, development, and innovation. And the strategy calls for national critical minerals research and innovation hubs focused on battery precursors, PGM-based catalysts, and next-generation solar technologies. A dedicated commercialization fund must support startups and new processing technologies, and I'm sure the Minister of Small Businesses will say this. And I call on WECONA and every woman in this room to ensure that women researchers, women innovators, and women-led startups are first in line for these opportunities. The technologies that will define the 21st century must bear the fingerprints of women's ingenuity. The third pillar is infrastructure and energy security. We know that industrialization cannot happen without reliable energy and efficient logistics. The strategy emphasizes differentiated electricity tariffs for mineral processors, the revitalization of our rail network and port systems, the chairperson said, and the development of dedicated rail corridors and green mining infrastructure. And the rail freight logistic roadmap is actually explaining this. Women-owned construction firms, engineering consultancies, and logistic companies must be deliberately included in these infrastructure investments through targeted procurement and capacity building programs. The fourth pillar is financial and fiscal incentives. The government's proposed balanced export strategy, tax credits for research and development, and tight taxation systems that reward local processing. All of these instruments must be designed with gender-responsive criteria. Development finance institutions must ring-fence funding for women-led enterprises in the minerals value chain. We cannot claim to support beneficiation while ignoring the 1% of the population that has historically been excluded from its benefits. The fifth one is workforce development. Manufacturing requires a fundamentally different skill set from extraction. Our strategy calls for curriculum alignment at universities and TVET colleges, so that please our universities must change their curriculum, new program in battery certificates, cell assembly, and advanced materials research and critical minerals workforce planning initiatives. I want to be specific. We need dedicated bursary programs for women in mining engineering, metallurgy, chemical engineering, and data science for mining. We need mentorship pipelines that take young women from university lecture halls to mine boardrooms. We need artisan training programs that place women in the workshops where the future is being built. So, program director, no country, however richly endowed, can build a 21st century manufacturing ecosystem alone. The critical mineral strategy recognizes that South Africa must serve as a regional industrial hub, integrated with our SADC neighbors and the broader African continent. And I say to the women of Africa gathered here today, this vision of regional partnership is your vision too. Consider the extraordinary minerals complementarity across our region. South Africa leads in manganese, PGMs, vanadium, and nickels. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia are rich in copper and cobalt, critical and for battery cathodes. Mozambique, Tanzania, and Madagascar possess significant graphite reserves for battery anodes. Zimbabwe is a key source of lithium. Collectively, the SADC region holds a dominant share of the world's critical mineral reserves required for battery production. No single country possesses the full suite, but together we possess everything. The strategy proposes regional mineral beneficiation hubs, not merely trading raw ore between neighbors, but collaborating to process these materials into intermediate and final products within Southern Africa. battery production hubs that utilize regional nickel, graphite, cobalt, etc., co-investment partnerships where South Africa acquires equity stakes in regional mining operations while contributing technical expertise and infrastructure. So the African Continental Free Trade Area offers a framework for creating the unified market and economies of scale needed to attract the massive capital required for gigafactories, shared infrastructure, harmonized mining regulations, and reduce logistic costs across borders. These are the building blocks of a competitive regional manufacturing ecosystem. In Africa, minerals to build Africa's future, then Africa's women must be the builder. And if Africa's minerals are to build Africa's future, then Africa's women must be the builders. I call on the women. I call on the women of the DRC, of Zambia, of Zimbabwe, of Mozambique, of Tanzania, and of every SADC nation to join hands with their South African sisters in forging these regional partnerships. Women cross-border traders already form the backbone of informal regional economies. It is time to formalize, to finance, and to scale their participation in the formal mineral value chain. WECONA must become a continental platform, not only a South African one. We need a SADC women's mining charter. We need regional procurement targets for women-owned enterprises. We need a Pan-African Women in Mining Fund that supports women entrepreneurs across the value chain, from the pit in Lualaba to the port in Durban, from the lithium fields in Masvingo to the battery plants of the Eastern Cape. The SADC cooperation agreements and regional EV frameworks envisioned by the critical mineral strategy must have women's economic empowerment as a non-negotiable pillar, not as an afterthought, not as footnotes, but as a foundation. Program Director, allow me to close where I began, with women of 1956. When those 20,000 women marched to the union buildings, they were told they were being unreasonable. They were told the economy was not their domination. They were told at the time that indeed they were minors. They were told to go home and wait patiently for change. As a matter of fact, they were imprisoned, but they refused. They marched and they changed the course of history. Today, 70 years later, we face a different set of barriers, but the spirit required to overcome them is the same. The mining sector tells women to wait. The finance sector tells women to be patient. The global supply chain tells women to be grateful for the margins. We refuse, and we must refuse. We march from pit to port. We march from exclusion to ownership. We march from raw ore to manufactured product. We march from surviving to thriving, and will not stop until the promise of the Freedom Charter, the vision of the Beijing Declaration, and the defiance of the Women's March are fully, completely, and irreversibly realized. South Africa sits on $2.5 trillion of mineral wealth. The critical minerals race is accelerating. The global energy transition demands the very metals we possess. The infrastructure of the future, that is batteries, fuel cells, electric vehicles, green steels, depends on what lies beneath our soil. The question before this assembly is simple. Will women be spectators in this transformation? Or will women be the architects, the engineers, the entrepreneurs, the investors, and the leaders who drive it? WECONA's answer is clear. The government answer is clear. My answer is clear. She mines for the future. She processes for the future. She manufactures for the future. She exports for the future. She leads for the future. From pit to port, the future is female. wathinta abafazi.
If you're not on your feet, I don't know where you've just been. I feel like I was in an economics masterclass and in church all at the very same time. Can we please give our Honorable Minister a resounding round of applause? We cannot run the race with half the team sitting on the bench. Women have to stand up and show up as the architects, the builders, the collaborators, the engineers, the investors, the entrepreneurs, the collaborators. Here's to receiving our permission to be unreasonable. Here's to receiving our permission to be impatient. And here's to the green light that no more will be settled for the crumbs. Honorable Minister, thank you so much. Siyabonga. Sure. I feel a bit of a revival. I hope I'm not the only one in the room. Behind me, I kept hearing, and there's nothing like in the African context that says it's really landing. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I think the soil has been tilled. We are ready for our first panel discussion. And we're going to have these discussions back to back. We're going to try and to be as concise as possible in the moderated piece so that perhaps we have time to take one or two questions from the audience before we make our way, of course, to our second keynote of the afternoon. And that, of course, is listening to Minister Ndabeni. So we're going to be moving this podium in a second. I'm just going to use it to invite my panelists to come and join me. To my panelists, your microphones are on your seats. As soon as you're seated, we're going to get the panel discussion on the road. This first panel is our conversation that is really focused on the question of the opportunities in the mining sector and, of course, taking on the question of safety of women in the sector as well. I'm pleased to welcome to join me by taking their seat, Madame Fezeka Mavuso, who is the Western Cape chairperson of SAWIMA and the National Treasury General. That, of course, is the South African Women in Mining. Madame Mavuso, can we give Madame a big round of applause as she comes up? This one. Thank you very much. Allow me to also welcome the acting DDG in the Western Cape, looking after economic development and tourism, Madame Ilse van Skalkwyk. Are you with us? Thank you very much, Ilse. Let's give her a big round of applause. We're joined by Dr. Mashego Mashego, Executive Director looking after corporate affairs at Harmony Gold. Doctor, are you with us? Thank you very much. We appreciate you, sir. Allow me to also call on Madame Neo Monareng, Executive Head of Sustainability at Exaro. Madame Monareng, are you with us? Yes, let's give her a big round of applause. In the title, it was written designate in brackets. I don't speak of designates, it's already done. That's how we move. We heard about the logistics sector, so I want to create way now for Madame Tembi Likhanyanye, General Manager looking after strategy at Transnet Rail Infrastructure. Madame Tembi, are you with us? I'm doing a quick scan from Transnet. Yes, thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause. It's a very big panel, as you can see. And then finally, it's my absolute pleasure, especially because the minister spoke about the importance, or one of the pillars being research and innovation, that we have a Chief Research Operations Officer at the Mine Health and Safety Council, Madame Fatila Brovko, who joins us today. Can we give her a big round of applause as well? Might I kindly ask that the podium is removed? Thank you, sir, for your kind assistance. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's a very big panel, but we're going to try to be as concise and to the point as possible. The intention of this conversation is to anchor ourselves in what's practical and what's doable. rather than speaking to the theoretical and the semantic. And so I'm going to start off by actually coming to yourself, Madam Fezeka. When we talk about the mining value chain, from where you sit, where are you seeing the most meaningful opportunities for women right now? And what would you say is responsible for those opportunities opening up? Maybe you take this one.
Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here representing the woman who is in the from the rural areas of Limpopo, from the rural areas of Mpumalanga, from the rural areas of the Eastern Cape. I'm from the Eastern Cape. Next to my village, there is a mine, a coal mine, that has not been operational because the voice of the community and the women was not taken into consideration. I'm here representing multitudes of small businesses that are women-owned, that are sitting there not having a clue of what is happening when there is a mining indaba. I'm representing the multitudes of women who died holding mining permits and not knowing what to do with them.
Sure.
I'm representing women right now who've got mining permits, but they do not have funds to operate or operationalize those permits. I'm here representing women at the local and the doorstep of the mining companies and the mining operations who do not have access to opportunities in those mines. There are opportunities throughout the value chain for women.
Right.
From ownership to operations to beneficiation. I'm glad, Minister Chikunga, when we are saying we are exporting our minerals in their raw form. Hence, we are exporting job opportunities. Because if we were to process those minerals, if we were to manufacture, we would decrease unemployment by a huge margin. And then we buy those minerals back at an inflated price. There are opportunities in the supply chain. I think for many of the women that are here, we take it light when we consider supply chain. Take for example, a mine that is feeding 17,000 employees a day, 3 meals a day. How much is that mine spending?
Yeah.
So sometimes as women who are looking at being a mine owner instead of looking at the low-hanging fruit for us.
Sure.
Toilet paper, for example. Everybody uses toilet paper on a daily basis. How many toilet paper would you have to supply to each mine?
Sure.
As an SMME in that community, so that you can sustain yourself, you can sustain the community, you can sustain your family. And then after you have entered into the mining space, then you start growing.
Sure.
And then you start. So the opportunities are there, but sometimes we are not looking
Right.
at the right place.
Thank you. I think it's such a great point. And yes, it does deserve a round of applause that, that while ownership remains important, the opportunities extend beyond the question of ownership. And we need to be stress testing the broader supply chain to unlock those opportunities. I'm going to make my way back to you, Madame Fezeka, but let me go to Ilse next. One of the things that Madame Futi said, she highlighted that We find ourselves in the Western Cape. This is not necessarily a mining province per se. And therein the opportunity for us to talk about some of those adjacent opportunities. When we look at the work that that the department is doing here, when the province is doing rather, which levers are you looking at to really pull and crowd women in to mining opportunities, especially in adjacent industries like logistics, like services, and maybe even some of the beneficiation opportunities that Madame Fezeka was raising?
Thank you very much, and it's an honor to be here today. Thank you very much, ministers. So, I grew up in the Free State, so I'm very much aware of what mining can actually do for a whole range for communities, especially. In the Western Cape, where we mostly, in terms of like the sand, Minister mentioned the range, literally spot on in terms of the opportunities. But critically for us, it's about how do we crowd in women entrepreneurs and businesses into the value chain, whether it's logistics, whether it's services, whether it's a range of these aspects. And I'm going to mention 5 key points. The first aspect is, how do we increase participation? So we have a strategy called Growth for Jobs, which is really around how do we build a 1 trillion rand economy in the Western Cape by 2035. And that requires us to remove barriers for businesses to grow. Whether you're female-owned business or male-owned business, we have to remove those binding constraints, what's making it hard for an entrepreneur to function. The first aspect is in terms of public procurement as a market creation lever. We often get this wrong as government in terms of really pushing procurement. So in 2024-25, about 34.6% of our provincial procurement, that was 6.8 billion rand, went to women-owned businesses. That wasn't by mistake or by chance, but by design. So it's critically that we are supporting businesses in terms of how do I grow my business? Because what does a business need? You need business sales. You need more, and you need to have reliable value chains to be able to transact into other areas. And that includes, like you mentioned, logistics, maintenance, professional services, industrial inputs, etc. If you look specifically, which was mentioned with regards to the role that we play in the SADC region, in South Africa, we have some of the best skills in engineers, architects, etc. And those skills are one of our service exports. It's very valuable. It's how do we support that? The second element in terms of our strategy is in terms of placing a strong emphasis in terms of ease of doing business. We've set up a unit called the Red Tape Reduction Unit. It's been around probably for about 6 years. It's cutting costs. It's where a business can reach out to say, I'm having trouble with XYZ. And oftentimes it's problems which government creates. I'm not getting this permit through. This is taking long. I'm not getting an answer. I'm not getting a response from national government right to local government.
Sure.
So the Red Tape Reduction Unit is focusing on how do we make it easier for businesses and giving a voice to the business community. The third element is about prioritizing industrialization and value adding for women-owned firms, specifically in terms of beneficiation. And this is a lever which I think is getting more attention nationally, which is about our SEZs, our special economic zones. In the Western Cape, primarily, I want to mention it's our Saldanha SEZ, which is more focused in terms of oil and gas manufacturing, but it's now entering the race with regards to green hydrogen.
Yeah.
We have a lot of green hydrogen investment happening there, as well as Atlantis SEZ, which is focusing on EVs, etc. So Atlantis, and it's how do we actually crowd in women entrepreneurs to make use of these facilities and investment. Fourthly, it's about exports, and we've got a range of support programs for entrepreneurs in terms of you need to grow market access. If you want your business to grow, you cannot just focus on the domestic market. You have to be able to scale, and we're going to address that later. And finally, it's about, in terms of the circular economy and looking at the other and the green, you were mentioning it earlier, Minister, but the green economy in terms of recycling, beneficiation, minerals and mining industries are huge users of those aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elsa. I think it does deserve a round of applause, because I think one of the things that comes to the surface is the comprehensiveness of what needs to be in play for the whole system to work. So it's really, it's insightful when you hear that we need to be thinking about access to markets, while at the same time, how do we reduce red tape? At the same time, thinking about how do we move into the region. So it is all these levers in play almost simultaneously that shift the system and not just one of them. And that, I think, is a really big insight. Dr. Mashiko, let me come to you. I mean, one of the things we've heard already, and I don't doubt we'll continue to hear, is around WECONA's own target of 40% procurement target in order to really get women-owned suppliers in the door as participants. Let's look at that from a Harmony Gold perspective. Where are the most immediate opportunities at Harmony Gold to bring women-owned suppliers in to participate? And where are you seeing the greatest traction?
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and ministers, good afternoon. I think the question needs to be asked differently.
Sure.
We need to be looking into the whole concept of saying what progress has been made thus far. And then we come back and say, where can we still sort of push for more? If one were to look at the mining industry, it's an industry that has been, for many decades, been dominated by men. Core to that domination has been the white males that have been sort of calling the shots, okay? They are the people that knew where to find whatever services they were looking for. There has been networks that were created over that time. And when you talk about transformation, you're talking about sharing the cake from people that have been historically been benefiting out of the system. Now, you can't say I'm going to transform without being intentional about it. What do we mean when we say being intentional? At Harmony, something that we have learned over the years was this concept of coming up with policies that would be addressing transformation.
Right.
You don't just come up with policies just to decorate your walls. You come up with policies that are underpinned by actions and targets that you're going to be sort of following through to deliver on those policies. But then it's not just about also delivering on those particular targets. What many people tend to do is just to be compliant.
Yeah.
And if you are going to be working towards being compliant, you'll never make a difference because you do the bare minimum. So when we go out as Harmony, we basically are saying we want to go beyond what is being measured by whoever is measuring it.
Yeah.
What have we achieved thus far in terms of what I'm saying?
Sure.
We have come up with what we would call a robust socio-economic transformation plan, which you can go back and audit and say, where did you start? What did you put in place? How can you measure the rent value? Our chairman tends to say time and again when we talk about transformation, he's very, very pro-transformation. And he would say, how many families have you enabled to go into Woolworths?
Sure.
Instead of them just going to the common shops, how many have you empowered to go into Woolworths? He would then say, how many families have you empowered to take their kids through university without having to rely on somebody else? Okay. That is basically how you then measure the transformation that you're talking about.
Sure.
And now what we have done is over the past 7 years, because we started looking into really making that impact where it matters most. From 2019 to 2025, 6.7 billion rand was spent with black-owned women companies. black women-owned companies. And we're talking of empowering about 370 suppliers
Sure.
that are women-owned in the different communities. Now, how do we then ensure that I had the example of toilet papers?
Yes, yes.
Yes, maybe it's a good place to start. However, you're not going to move the needle if you just look at the small kind of businesses
Yes.
in the communities. You need to be identifying women that have got the muscle that you would empower in terms of growing them
Sure.
into the core of the business. What we have done thus far in terms of our track record, we've been able to bring women into the system and made sure that they are integrated into the supply chain of the top 10 commodities.
Right.
Which is basically now what we are saying in terms of sort of coming back to say, where are the opportunities remaining? When we talk about the top 10 commodities, you're talking about mining services, you're talking about mining support products, you're talking about construction services, you're talking about IT services, electrical motors, engineering services, general consumable products, general steel products, mechanical repairs, and capital project services. Before you take the microphone from
Yeah.
me, let me answer the question that you haven't asked me. Are we there yet?
No.
Are we making this, like the strides that we would have made given the muscles that we have? I'll be the first one to accept that. Whereas we are not where we used to be, but we are not where we're supposed to be. And let me pause there.
Thank you very much for that response and giving us a tangible example of what it looks like to go beyond compliance and to giving us some of those real numbers. 6.7 billion rand, 370 suppliers, and of course the challenge to say we can do more than just do the catering, we can do more than just the toilet paper, but therein comes the second panel discussion, which is how do we then unlock the funding to create the women with the muscle that Dr. Mashego speaks about. Let me then move on to Madame Neo, because one of the things, or one of the pathways, Neo, is that we look to supplier development programs to create these pathways into the business, as we've heard Dr. Mashego say. What have you seen as characteristic of supplier development programs that are exponentially successful at creating women-owned businesses of muscle and significant scale that can really step into the opportunities that we've been speaking about?
Thanks, Nozipo. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Mashego, I was going to quote a couple of numbers until you went and you gave us billions. And I had to quickly just Google what's the market cap of Harmony Gold. We are safe, so my numbers are valid. So in brackets, it's got designate, and there's a bit of context here. 3 months ago, I joined this business, this company called Exaro. For those who are in the know, Exaro is turning 20 years this year. So in 2006, yeah, sure, we can clap for Exaro. Thank you. 2006, young entrepreneurs under the leadership of Obab Siponkosi came together, and they had a dream to finally, as black young entrepreneurs, to own mining reserves. They had women in the team. One of them is a prominent magnate in the manganese business, Umam Defni Mashile Nkosi. Sure, we can clap for that as well. So this is the company that I joined 3 months ago. And a bit about Exaro. Exaro is a diversified resources champion in Africa and beyond. We've got footprint in Mpumalanga, we've got footprint in Limpopo, and this is where our base commodity is, which is coal. We've got equity shares with at Kumba with the Sishen Iron Ore Company. We also have a zinc equity share as well in the Black Mountains, and just the other day we also acquired 60% of a TP mine, which is a manganese mine. This is one of our ambition and part of the strategy
Sure.
to acquire our transition minerals, and manganese, us going into the Kalahari manganese field is a step towards that. Our vision as Exaro is to power better lives in Africa and beyond. Ntate Mashego, when you spoke about what you have spent to date on the black businesses,
Yeah.
if we look at Exaro, from 2018 to date, we've spent about 1.1 billion rand just on ESDs. And 40% of that, it has gone to women. And between 2018 to now, we've learned a lot of lessons. And we've had to come up with a framework that's been guiding us in the past few days just to make sure that there's sustainability
Sure.
in these black woman-owned businesses. So the one thing that we've also learned is that it doesn't help that we go and we put women in businesses without the real need and without the real demand.
Yes.
There is no sustainability in that. So what we have done is we first identify opportunities. These could be in direct procurement or it could be subcontracting. And that's where we then start with the women.
Yeah.
We then go into a second phase, which is the pre-development or the readiness
Sure.
phase. We've also realized that women businesses do not fail purely because of the lack of potential. They just fail because some of them, they are not procurement ready. And at this stage, we then go and we support the ladies, or we support women-owned enterprise to obtain technical certifications. We help them meet compliance standards, and we just help them to strengthen their abilities so that when we go through the RFP processes, they submit a competitive
Yeah.
proposal. Once we've done that, we feel that they are now halfway through. We then enter the financing space.
Sure.
And what we offer is, we offer grants, and we also offer interest-free loans. That's where we've been quite successful. And coupled to that, we also go into non-financial support, mentorship, coaching, and financial governance guidance, so that
Sure.
we create fully fledged suppliers. The one thing that we also pride ourselves in is we handhold a bit. And this is purely because we understand how important it is to position women as people that deliver,
Sure.
people that want production performance, because in the mining sector, when you speak to people and you're saying, I've got a woman who's capable,
Track record.
track record speaks volume.
Yeah.
So we make sure that we do a lot of hand holding just to make sure that they then end up with track record, which means then we can continuously recontract and they can then scale their business. So that's the one thing that we do. We have identified that we're not going to do this thing once off.
Sure.
This is a cyclic process, and we then take our graduates through this project through and through again.
Sure.
I just want to share an example of a lady that has really done that for us. We've got Abigail Tulare. She is in the Limpopo Waterberg area. Abigail, in 2021, she had aspirations to have a logistics business. She applied for a loan, interest-free loan of about 7.5 million. She acquired her first truck. In 2023, she came back again. She asked for 11.5 million, and she subsequently increased her fleet.
Sure.
As we speak right now, she is, initially when she joined, she was subcontracting with the main logistic company. She is now directly contracting with the,
Sure.
with the mine. Under her business, she's also now further subcontracting the ladies within the water bag sector or region. Just to touch on how she's grown, between 2021 to date, she's moved from a turnover of about 2 million to about 100 million. So this is just a woman
Sure.
that was intentional, and she followed through with our program. We tend to talk about the mining value chain, and mostly we're saying from pit to port.
Sure.
Exara has another element, which is the mineral succession program. We've got land. Some of the land we've had to rehabilitate from previously opening holes to now closing the holes. At this point in time, we've got about 10,000 hectares of land that's been leased back. And we currently have about 138 commercial farmers.
Sure.
And of 54% of that is
Oh,
women.
women.
So this is basically what we've done just to make sure that the programs are sustainable.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm allowing my panelists to give us the breadth that they can. I'm going to ask you to bear with me because it is important that we're not operating at sound bites in these conversations and to really hear the substance of what's coming through. We're going to go a lot tighter in the next round, but I do appreciate that. I think one of the things that was also really meaningful hearing from you, Neo, is the process. You know, one of the things that Madame Futi spoke about is the idea of moving from a demand-led perspective and how you use that as your starting point, then to procurement readiness, then to technical certification before financing. And I think that's useful to understand the process, and I do want to thank those who are trying to help us with the audio in the room. I do appreciate that very much. So then, Madame Tembi, oh, before I move on, by the way, when I don't know if you noticed, when Neo started, she highlighted to us that, no, she's just arrived. That's why the designate is there. Very, very soon, it will be gone. So she says, I've just been here 3 months. Give me time, and it will be gone. So I noted that. Let me go to Madame Tembi next. I want Tembi just to spend a minute or two on just concrete practical examples of opportunities that sit in the adjacent industries, right? We've been speaking a little bit about some of those, but knowing that you're coming from Transnet, I think it's a great opportunity for us to shine the spotlight on the logistics adjacent industry and for you to surface some of the opportunities there. Can I just ask you to press the orange button underneath, alternatively to swap out the microphone? All right, let's pass down. And there we go.
Oh, it's going.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and honorable ministers and the guests. We really appreciate the opportunity as well to join the panel. Obviously not directly from the mining industry. However, as Transnet, we are a huge part of the family of mining, because without our logistics system, the product that gets mined by all the miners is not going to be able to get out of the country and be exported. So maybe just to start, for those who are not familiar with Transnet and what we do, we have 7 operating divisions within Transnet, all focusing on logistics from pit to port. So we are very closely operating inside with the mines, just adjacent to the mine, and then our value chain then moves to the port where the product then gets on a vessel and then gets exported to wherever the destination is. So if we don't perform in terms of transportation and the logistics system, then the output of the mining industry is also diminished in terms of the income that can be generated, even indirectly the jobs that can be created within the mining space. So yeah, we really an integral part of the logistics system. Our rail system, which is really the backbone of this mining integration, can take up to 250 million tons of mining product and traffic. in a year. But at the moment, I think last year this year we're aiming to do around 180. We might finish somewhere around the 170 mark, just because we are dealing with quite several challenges within the value chain, which I think is where also some of the opportunities for our ladies to participate in also lie. We move coal, we move manganese, we move ore, chrome, magnetite. Those form about 90% of that 250 million tons that we move on the network. And then in some parts of the network, it is shared with what we call general traffic, general freight traffic, which is your container and your manufacturing type of products. So from that perspective, yeah, we do serve quite a big range of commodity suppliers. Now, in terms of tangible opportunities, they range straight from when the product comes out of the mine, when you then load it on the train, and then all the way down to the port. So if I can just compartmentalize, and I think a lot of people don't understand our operations to that level of detail, so I'm just going to spend a bit of time there. In the loading sites, we've got what we call rail sidings, because the only way for for the mining product to get onto a train, it needs to be loaded using specialized equipment.
Sure.
Yes. So rail sidings are big terminals next to a mine where you then can then load your product. The opportunities we create there across the entire geography of our operation, we operate in all the provinces, basically, from Lephalale all the way down to Richards Bay. In all the provinces, there's some pit-to-port systems to all the different ports in the country. There's about 8 ports that we export to. Those operations are basically terminal operations.
Sure.
We concession them out. So there is an opportunity for everyone in the room to actually participate as terminal operators, where all you need is really to just bring loading equipment, generally a yellow plant equipment, and have operating staff, very minimal amounts that are required, and then have a willing investor. I was just asking my colleagues around how much would be required in terms of investments there. It ranges between 5 million to 50 million, depending on the size of the operation that you're doing. And the income levels are quite lucrative there as well. So it's a very easy one to get into. When we move from the sidings and then go down to the main system now, what we call the main line system, we've just opened access, which is a huge policy shift that has just happened in the rail space, where we are allowing private operators to come on board and to start running trains. It used to be just Transnet that runs the trains. So we've now opened the market to say anyone can actually run trains. There you will need a bit of investment, but again, we allow people to form consortiums, and at the moment, we've awarded business to about 11 new operators in this space. Most of them did not have a rolling stock, which is the locomotives and the wagons, which is the biggest part of the investment. But because there's global interest in this, it really doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man in this instance. What you need is to be able to access investment and funding, and maybe have the skill to sell, because off the back of the policy change, investors are willing to actually give people the investments we are seeing. So we're working very hard to collaborate and to train people up in terms of how do you actually get yourself ready to do that. Again, if you are able to talk to investors, there's not a lot of money that you require out of your pocket to do the work, and we work with people to actually do that.
Madam Tembi, thank you very much. I'm going to pause you there, but I think, again, some really practical, directive opportunities and where they sit. I think one of the things that really stands out for me is also getting a sense of the ticket size in terms of the investment opportunity, because when we were talking about Madam Tulari that Neo was talking about and the numbers, you begin to realize that it is doable. Those numbers can be raised, and that's within the investment appetite that exists. So Fatila, as I come to you, I want us to begin to transition into the safety conversation, because one of the things that we said we wanted to talk about in this panel was not only opportunities, we also wanted to talk a little bit about the safety. So I'm going to come to Fatila first, and then as I come back to everyone with their final comments, I'm going to ask you to be very sharp and very brief and concise in this final round of questions. Fatila, when you in particular look at the current research around safety risks in mining, does it have a gender lens? Is it differentiated to give us a sense of what this looks like in the universe of women? And is there a particular narrative or storyline that's emerging that you could share with us?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ministers and members. So what we find is that there is gender differentiated risks that show up in 3 areas. The first one is, how is the work designed? Secondly, what does the workplace assume about the worker? And thirdly, how safely can people raise concerns? And what we find is, from research that we've just recently finalized, that overexertion and ergonomics is one of the major safety concerns for women. So this results in fatigue, you get physical and mental strain, you find injuries of women, musculoskeletal disorders, and as well as long-term occupational health impacts. So some of the contributors for this specifically, and here we're talking about the workplace design, is the high workload, the heavy manual lifting and handling that women have to do, the long traveling distances to and from the face. We also find heat, you have poorly designed PPE, inadequate ablution facilities, as well as a lack of just respect. There's discrimination, and then there's also difficult work-life balance that women face in particular. So the next one, and I'm going to be brief, is the psychosocial safety, which includes harassment as well as GBVF. And statistics about this is still thin on the ground, because women don't always report due to fear of retaliation, stigma, their career. And we also find that reporting systems vary from mine to mine. And the structures and the support are still not strong enough. So from this workplace design, you can see that when tasks are routinely manual or heavy, or even poorly designed, it can result in a woman being vulnerable, where men would like to exchange sexual favors to do the woman's work. So those are just some of the factors. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Fatila, because I think, and it does deserve a round of applause, because it really shines the spotlight on the danger of just pushing for participation, but not really understanding and going as far as the nature of that participation and what needs to be in place. I want to come to Neo and Dr. Mashiko very quickly while we're in the safety part of the conversation, but I want to extend it beyond the internal employee to locate it in terms of how are you thinking about safety for women entrepreneurs who are engaging with your business. Dr. Mashiko, maybe let me give you an opportunity to go first. Where does that sit in the universe of what is important to Harmony as you think about safety and how you engage with women entrepreneurs in the sector?
Part of transformation has got to do...
My apologies, please, sir. Might I just ask once more, what tends to happen is that the acoustics is such that the noise is elevated on stage, so at some point we can't hear ourselves speaking. So if you could kindly please just keep it down, we'd really, really appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Dr. Mashiko.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. What I was saying is part of transformation is a whole issue of ethics.
Sure.
And if we talking of transforming whether it be the workplace or it be the suppliers that are coming
Sure.
into the organization, we should, as a foundation, have an ethical kind of an environment. There's no woman that needs to be subjected to intrusion into her privacy just because she's supposed to get a business deal. That is not correct. And it's something that, as the mining industry, I'm not just talking about Harmony now, I'm talking about us as
Sure.
a mining industry, we are very decisive about that.
Yeah.
To say, as much as we protect our employees, our women employees going underground, we will also protect our women entrepreneurs
Sure.
that are coming into the space. That's where we start. To that effect, we have what you would call a hotline. That if you were to come to Mashiko's office and Mashiko says that tender will be yours if you come to my hotel room at this time, the woman can blow a whistle on me.
Sure.
And I need to be tackled with, to be dealt with, okay, so that we can root out
Yeah.
that rot. Number two, there is this element of fronting. Because sometimes you don't have people asking for sexual favors, but people come
Yeah.
who have been previously advantaged and they say, can we make use of your name so that we can get business?
Yes.
We basically say to our entrepreneurs, our SMMEs, do not allow yourself to be
Used.
used.
Yeah.
Because on paper, you see that they say this woman owns up 20% or 30% of the company, or even 50% of the company. But the woman doesn't even know how much the company has in the bank. The woman doesn't even know what are the dealings and the workings of the company. At the end of the day, the woman is earning a salary of 5,000 rand out of a company that is said to be 51% owned by that very same woman.
Sure.
So we deal decisively with fronting.
Dr. Mashiko, I have a little bit of a time constraint. I've got
Okay.
minister who needs to leave. So I do apologize that if I'm being a bit short with you right now, please accept my apology. Now I'm gonna come to you with the same posture because I'd like for you to build a little bit on that by commenting first. What is the link between doing some of the things that Dr. Mashiko speaks about and the sustainability of women's mining businesses? Is there a link that when we have hotlines, when we operate from an ethical position, are we contributing to the sustainability of those businesses over time?
Thanks, Nozipo. Quickly, mining industry and safety they are partners.
Sure.
In 50 years ago, we used to have close to 500 fatalities a year. As coal industry, we also we had high numbers. Of recent, in 2025, we had, coming from 2024, we had 6 fatalities, we only had 1.
Sure.
It's not something to be celebrated. I just wanted to highlight that to say, we have learned to keep people safe.
Yes.
And where women are concerned and women-owned enterprises development is concerned, and I spoke earlier about sustainability, is that the framework that we've developed, we are trying to take away vulnerability.
I got you.
Because when a woman is ill-prepared, they tend to be vulnerable,
Sure.
and our processes tends to then take away that. Just in closing, we believe that safety is a growth enabler.
Yeah.
And everything else that Dr. Mashiko have spoken about, as mining industry, we've looked at the best practices and we're doing that because we believe it's a growth enabler. Thanks.
Thank you for raising the point about vulnerability, and I think, Fatila, you would agree with that because it's exactly the point that you had raised for us. Again, maybe, Madam Tembe, as I come to you, one of the things that Fatila says to us is, you know, we need to look beyond just participation. So when we look at the logistics sector where you find yourself, how are you thinking about pushing for the participation of women and for their safety at the same time? How do you ensure that those are not trade-offs and are actually things that are mutually reinforcing?
Yeah. So from a safety perspective, we've got on the rail side, we've got the railway safety regulator that keeps us quite in check in terms of what are the requirements if you are entering into our logistics space. They're very quite detailed, and they've got a lot of guidelines for women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general. They will not let you get onto our operation unless you meet certain safety requirements, and they work very closely with you to put together a safety management system, and they monitor the performance. Same on the marine side, there's the SA Maritime Safety Association of South Africa, same guidelines as well. But as we hear from the mining industry, we actually started an initiative with them recently. We are coming to the mines actually to benchmark, because our safety stats are not as good as they are. I must mention, in our space, the biggest challenge is that where we work, if you've driven along a railway line throughout the country, it's in the open.
Sure.
So there's a lot of vulnerability in terms of the safety of women, even in those siding operations and the yards where the trains are put together, where you see there's a lot of women management working there. They work in the dark sometimes, so we've started to improve on the lighting and things like that.
Sure.
But there's a lot that still needs to be done to come up with innovative ways in which we can protect the women, but that awareness from a entrepreneurial perspective is required so that the women can be prepared.
And that candid awareness is a great place to be starting. Ilsa and Madame Fezeka, I'm going to end off with you because I think you bring us to a close as we think about scale. Fatila, let me close off the safety conversation with you. One of the things that one would want to test is the extent to which we're using safety data to flow into the operational environment and to influence the kind of decisions the likes of Dr. Mashego and Newa would be making. Is there enough of that flow of safety data into the operational environment?
So basically, safety data should be used and is currently being used as a control. It's not just a filing exercise. But what we could improve is to disaggregate our safety data. Okay. So get a better understanding by gender, by job, task, work area, for example, shift time. And then we also need to shift our focus from measuring lagging indicators, which is events that have already happened, to leading indicators, which are early warning signs. And once we identify these, we can start monitoring and bringing visibility to the issues at hand. And then to really make it operational, it's all about adding it to monthly dashboards, monitoring these, putting accountability, having responsible people, and then spending money where the data shows that the risk really lies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, I think very practical. I love the unspoken proactivity that it then, doing those actions would bring into the operational environment, because one is working with live data almost in real time. So let me begin to wrap up this conversation. Madame Fezeka, let me come to you. Assuming that we have addressed some of the opportunities that we've spoken about on the panel, and we've addressed the safety issues, if there's one thing that you are still hearing women crying about from where you are, what is the one thing that you think would make the lived experience of women entrepreneurs in mining a better experience?
Thank you, Program Director. I think I won't mention one, because it can't be one. There's just a few that needs to be mentioned. Because as entrepreneurs, when I indicated the low-hanging fruit on the supply chain, we want women. Mining is a very technical and capital-intensive industry. Yeah. So not every woman will be able to be a significant player without the support that they need from the government and also from the DFIs. So the issue here is, how do we access funding so that we can be able to be involved in the operations, to be involved in the beneficiation, to be involved in the processing. That is one thing that needs to be addressed. But funding alone without supporting those entrepreneurs in terms of the skills of running their businesses, it will like you are pouring money into a
leaking bucket.
A leaking bucket, because they will come back again for you to bail them. What Sawima is proposing and what they've already started with the Mpumalanga economic development and also the small-scale miners in Mpumalanga is to establish a mining incubator.
Sure.
That mining incubator, when you've got a permit, you will be going through the processes, getting the support. They will support you to get all the licenses, you will get all the reports that are needed up until you are ready to go and operate. That is one. We need that because these small-scale miners, they do have permits, but those permits are meaningless. There is a small-scale grant funding, but it is meaningless because it cannot cover all the costs that you need for you to be investment ready or to be ready, business ready to operate. So that is the first one. I think the second intervention that we need from government is the funding needs to be a little bit increased. When we are a small-scale funder, IDC, I did say in the morning, IDC doesn't fund you because it's a short term.
Sure.
Not all of us have the capacity to be big mining giants, but we need to increase the scale of those small-scale miners so that we can curb the illegal mining that is taking place. So if we can get the funding to be increased such that you will be able to cover your rehabilitation fund, all those licenses that you need until you can be able to open, and also the setting costs up until you can operate. Because having that permit, having a fund that is going to leave you halfway, it's as good as nothing.
I'm going to pause you there.
Lastly, I'm challenging you, Minister of Women. 20 years ago, the government set up a lot of associations. There were women in mining, women in construction, women in agriculture, women in transport, women in oil and energy. There was a lot of money that was invested there. If we are saying now we have not moved, you need to call us to account.
Sure.
That what happened, and I think WECONA as a multi-industry state platform, you can't do mining without agriculture, we can't do mining without construction, without energy. So you need to call us to say, here are the projects, or here are the projects. Women, collaborate now. You need to start collaborate and not compete amongst each other.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. For a second there, I thought Madame Fazega was asking for a commission. I'm like, hi, Madame, we are okay for now. Ilsa, closing comment from you. Where is there still work for policy to do? Because if we think about the universe of what we've discussed, there are still gaps. We've just heard Madame Fazeka pointing to many of those gaps. Where should, if we want policy to be targeted and specific, what are some of the gaps we need to close? And then we close.
Thank you very much. So in closing, you've literally entered into what I'm trying to say about, it's not just about getting more women into the value chain. Scale is the challenge. Like you said, policy needs to firstly address the gap in terms of growth capital.
Sure.
If you keep the contract values small, you keep them short term, they don't have the balance sheet to go and apply for funding. A crisis there is that the funding mechanisms have changed. That's the other element. We need to look at blended financing, guarantee instrument, contract backed funding. So the funding has to change to match the ability to scale. Secondly, it's in terms of the contract structure, as I mentioned. They need longer term contracts and supply aggregation to help them to be able to have that balance sheet again to scale, because this is a very, very expensive, capital intensive industry. Then it's in terms of the technical and operational depth. So the policy must shift from generic enterprise support. There is so much support for startups in this country.
Got you.
But the issue is we need more medium-sized firms. Our economy is vulnerable because we've got a high failure rate of startups. We do not have enough medium-sized firms. Go and look all across the world. The medium-sized firms are the guys where we get innovation, where we get technology developed. And for that medium-sized, they need different instruments. And then fourthly, it's about market concentration. So the mining supply chains are dominated by certain industries, again, because there's barriers, and it's not always a bad thing. But the issue is policy can help by opening procurement pipelines, supporting supplier, clustering, etc. We have to approach these things differently. It's a value chain approach, and it's with intention. So I want to end it up with saying, in short, inclusion gets women into the value chain. But scale requires policy that reshapes markets, de-risks growth, and rewards long-term participation. And that shift is what we need to make.
I think it's a great place to close the conversation. Thank you very much. I'm going to release my panel. I'm going to ask my brother who assisted me with the podium to please bring the podium back. We're going to have a picture opportunity. I'm going to ask you all to take a stand in the front as they take a picture. And I'm going to flex my moderator superpowers by rejigging the program just slightly. We're going to make way for Minister Ndabeni to address us, and then we're going to take the final panel before we make our way to the vote of thanks. Thank you very much. Yes, if we can just have you step into the light. Ladies and gentlemen, can we get a final round of applause for this panel, please? They were excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A big round of applause. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask us to please make way now as we receive our second keynote from our Minister of Small Business Development. Can I ask us to kindly please locate our seats? Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that's fine. Can I ask for a warm round of applause for Honorable Minister Ndabeni, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director of the Program. I know it looks like it's been a hectic day because you started somewhere, we are here, but I promise you, you are not going to regret why you are here. This is an important platform, and the engagements that you are having seek to enhance the work that you have already started. So just give us a few minutes so that we can really tie up certain loose, those loose holes that needs to be tightened so that we can really get to see what are these beautiful things that we're talking about and who are the beneficiaries. Program Director, allow me to stand on the protocols that have been established. Of course, acknowledge my counterpart, dear sister, the Minister for Women, Youth and People with Disabilities in our country. I just say I'm standing on the protocols, so I won't be mentioning one by one. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Beneath our soil lies an immense wealth. Wealth that has built industries, powered economies, and sustained livelihoods for generations. Everybody who stood here, they did talk about the journey that our parents traveled, leaving their homes in order to make sure that they can make a living for us and the next generations. Yet, the true measure of our democracy is not found in mineral reserves alone, but in who participates meaningfully in the economy they sustain, because we need a balance. We are taking pride on what has been brought for us, the political freedoms, all the rights that we enjoy, but there is this that is missing that must give effect to Section 22 of our Constitution. I'm not going to tell you what it says. You're going to go and read Section 22 of the Constitution. Today, we confront an undeniable reality. Women's full participation in mining, in ownership, procurement, and leadership remains an unfinished business with all the rights that we enjoy. For more than a century, mining has shaped our nation's economic destiny. It has driven industrialization, it has strengthened exports and sustained communities, as Minister Chigunga did say, yet women, particularly black women, have remained on the margins of ownership and value creation in this sector that is so strategic. This engagement, as convened by WECONA, alongside the African Mining Indaba, is therefore a strategic conversation about moving from intention to implementation, from dialogue to delivery. Advancing women's participation from pit to pot speaks directly to our transformation agenda, not only as the country, but as the region, the continent, and the globe. From exploration to beneficiation, from logistics to export markets, women must be owners, producers, and leaders in this economy that we are building. Of course, you're gonna say, hey, we voted for you. What are you doing to make sure that happens? I wanna give you this assurance that as government, you are fully committed to this vision of ensuring that women occupy their rightful place. Minister Chigunga articulated in terms of the numbers, the GDP contribution by the sector, the ownership by women, and the participation that is there. I'm not going to dwell much on those. I just want to talk what matters in relation to the responsibility that we have as your government that you have put into power. We've got to make sure that we break path dependency in two key areas. The first one, as I said earlier, is that we must beneficiate more of what we mine. As much as there is that from pit to pot, but it has to go via the factory. And this is where we want to spend much energy, because we've been doing that, taking everything and sending it somewhere, and therefore transporting the jobs. Now we're adding a second leg, WECONA, from pit to the factory and to when we have access, because we know the first market is us. That is why the amendments by the Department of Mining that talks to the Mineral Resources Bill aim to correct this by promoting local beneficiation and industrialization, ensuring that more raw materials are available for local value addition at commercial prices. We've seen this many a times, that as much as we would love all the bling, all the products that are produced from the minerals, but as they go, they come back triple priced. And we are the ones that cannot afford those. Therefore, it is important that we shift the narrative that we are beginning to see, that South Africa is gradually moving away from being an industrial economy to a services economy. We've got to wake up and make sure that we change how we do things. That minerals bill is critical, and it requires your support if we are to change how things are happening in our country, in the continent, and of course, in the globe. The critical mineral strategy that was developed again by the department also focuses on growing our industrial processing capabilities for the green and digital transition. If you're looking at the mining sector, it cuts across so many industries. Therefore, you cannot only confine your resources and thinking into one aspect. You've got to look at everything that those mine. They also respect the climate change. They've got to appreciate that there are new technologies. They've got to make sure that people are safe, and they've got to ensure that those that are in the built environment, the logistics, they're able to participate in the value chains that we're talking about. If we forget about that and focus on one aspect, we're going to see an oversaturation in the industry, which is why diversification becomes critical on the work that we do. The second aspect is that we must make mining more inclusive. Again, I go back to the law. I said you have voted for us. Ours is to make the law to enable you and then design instruments. And I know that you don't even participate when we design those laws. I'm not going to ask how many of you have responded to the bills that have been amended. I'm not sure how many of you have responded to the business licensing bill that you amended and how it impacts on your own sector, and the transformation fund that Minister Parkstow was busy consulting with. I do hope that you did participate, because if you did not, it means that your sector will be left behind. This is why we took a conscious decision when we adopted the constitution to say South Africa must adopt a different type of democracy, an activist approach, a participatory based, so that before we pass the policy, the people would have made inputs. Before we pass the legislation, the people have made inputs. And if you don't, others, they make inputs, and then when you're excluded, they come back and complain. So these legislations are here to ensure that we promote local mining communities. We've got to make sure that we protect the labor standing areas that must benefit more. Because if you look at so many areas that have been involved heavily on mining, they are ghost towns. Minister Chugunga was looking at me when I listened to the beautiful things that were said here. I said, Minister, can I ask you a question? Can the director of the ask me, Guti, if all these things that we're talking about are happening, where are these people? Why are we talking about high unemployment rate? And all our people are doing so well, as they explained here, my dearest panelists. What is it that we're not doing right? What is that we're not doing right? There's great things that are happening. People are benefiting. Maragune unemployment rate that is too high. Women are excluded in the mining economy. Big corporates are closing up spaces for medium and small enterprises. What is it that we did not get right? We must make our voices heard. This is why, as the department responsible for the development of small businesses, we said we can't keep quiet. It cannot be that we keep quiet. Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela did not fight for us to sell out. She fought to make sure that we can express ourselves and fight for what is due to the people that put us into power, for the people who make sure that others generate profit, but most importantly, for the people who deserve to enjoy every economic right in our country. That is why through our agency we have supported many, I shouldn't say many, few small businesses that are in this sector. I'm saying few, co-chairperson, because there's a lot that requires support. And if you look at my budget, just like Cindy's budget, we always complain in cabinet, I have 2.9 billion rands to support the MSMEs of our country. And yet the NDP says, out of the 11 million jobs that South Africa must create by 2011, 9 million must come from small businesses. And the budget is 2.9 billion. And I have not heard you protesting. You, MSMEs. I've not heard you saying, government, you've got to learn to put your priorities, resources, personnel, the business development support that is required, the contract support that is required. Dealing with unemployment requires all of us to work together, which means there's a need for a change in mindset of how we respond to policies, including redesigning new policies. If we are to tackle unemployment, we must start exploring the 24-hour economy. And this industry, mining, is the typical example, because most of the functions that are happening or the opportunities that are in the mining industry, they need people not to sleep. You've got to mine by night. In the morning, you do whatever that needs to be done. And that's an entire value chain that requires to make sure that our policy environment enables that, so that it's able to design instruments that must talk to that. If you get awarded a contract at 4 p.m., you should be able by 10 p.m. to respond, because we would have created a system that enables you to be able to do that, to say we are not sleeping because we are here to make money. But that requires collaboration that is deliberate, understanding of the opportunities first, understanding of the ecosystem, the regulations, and therefore the capabilities of the individuals that are participating in that industry. That is why we provide both non-financial and financial support to businesses. We've got a number of incubators that we have in the Northwest, with the Seedfar Platinum Incubator, which supports MSMEs, because we may have great ideas, we may start businesses, but if we don't understand the entire ecosystem of the industry, it means we're still gonna miss out on certain things. And this is when they will kick you out and say you are not compliant, you are not this, you don't miss that, and that, all the English that they come up with. Which is why we see the need to have specialized or sector-based incubators that must be there to assist businesses that are involved in the mining space, and make sure that you provide both the pre-investment and the post-investment support before we put in money, so that there can be sustainability and linkages, so that when we go to them, as they speak nicely here, and you start asking, so where is your 3% of enterprise supplier development going to? Are you compliant as XR? I'm not going to do that today. I'm leaving you today because we must work. We need to provide support towards buying the yellow fleet. And this we do as the agency. We give loans, blended loans, that go up to 15 million rands, a working capital that goes up to 15 million rands. Of course, asset finance, as I said, others, they need the yellow fleet, processing equipment, including washer plants. I know that at times these funds are not sufficient. That is why we work with NEF, because it is the DFI that is also responsible for financing small businesses. Of course, they go above 15 million up to 50 million. This is government-led interventions. I'm not going to the private sector as yet. Then you'll find IDC coming to complement that we are doing. And we have agreed as the two ministers that there's a need for us to collaborate, starting from the designing of the transformation fund that was announced by the president. And this we do because we must increase access to funding. We must increase funding so that we also look at access. Because you can focus on access if there's no funding, then it's not going to mean anything. You can focus on funding, but if access is not there, we're not going to achieve. Hence, we say, out of every rand that we are saying must support or must go to loans, there must be at least 20% that is invested for business development support, because our people continue not to access the funds even when they are designed. In Kimberley, we have the Kimberley Diamond Jewelry Incubator. Limpopo, we have another one, a Limpopo Jewelry Incubator in Leparo. We focuses on copper, zinc, and base metals. And of course, we continue to establish incubators. We partner with universities to establish the centers for entrepreneurship. We partner with TVET this morning. After cabinet, I met with the Minister of Higher Education and Training to say, how do we bring in all these resources where we need, because you find people, they are educated, but they don't know how to trade the education they've acquired. Hence, we find people standing in the corners, hi, I'm a BCom graduate, hire me. It's a BCom, I'm not talking about BA, excuse me, BA people. BCom graduates on the streets, I'm an ass, I'm this and that, and then we are talking of shortages of skills. But everyone is expecting that government must employ them. Everyone expects that government must therefore give them procurement opportunity. Kandi, which economics do you start in? Worldwide, Even here in South Africa, government contributes about 25 to 30% to the GDP. The rest is with the private sector, which is why it's important to understand the ecosystem that you are participating in, so that you challenge the laws to say, these laws of yours are inward-looking government. They're not helping us to tap into the opportunities by the private sector, because the private sector, they've introduced 1, 2, 3, which excludes us without saying it's not meant for you. You can read it. And you see this fine print says, Astrid, I don't qualify. But they did not say it. But because you can pick it up, right? But how do we utilize the power that we have to challenge the policies of the private sector itself, that you cannot continue to close out people that must participate in the same economy in order to complement what you are doing? That it is high time that we unbundle the value chains. So if you continue protecting the few that you are sourcing from, you are killing the economy, because people will not be employed. And research has proven, as the NDP said, jobs are going to come from small and medium enterprises. So we're not doing this for fun. We're doing this because there's a need to make sure that the rent circulates amongst people, because when people are employed by my entrepreneurs, they're able to go and buy from my entrepreneurs, and then we're able to pay taxes, and therefore we pay for social services, roads, and everything the entrepreneurs are complaining about. But most importantly, we're able to increase funding that must go to small and medium enterprises so that they can do what they have to do. In total, we have about 120 incubators here in South Africa as the portfolio. I'm not talking about the ones of the private sector. We have 50 branches throughout the country. I'm giving you this information because many a times I get people asking me, whether it's on LinkedIn, on social media, Minister, please advise me. I'm a woman in mining. What can I do? What support can I get from your department? Yeah, I should have started teaching. But then I'll be like, all right, you please go, because you are the one that knows your business. We have a variety of interventions, just like the bank has. Now, if you're not certain about which product you need, I'm unable to help you. And I will do what I do best to say, please, because I can see you have access to internet, hence you are chatting with me on this platform, just go on our website or go to your nearest SITFA office, ask them for the products, for them to give you the brochure, read the qualifying criteria, see which one talks to you. Because my business advisors will not understand what works for you. But because there's information that you avail, you are even able to say, actually what you have put here is excluding us, Minister. This brochure and this information and the product design does not talk to us. Please change, tell your team to change, because we are here to respond to your needs. Then we'll go and change, because we are not business people. We are policy and funding institutions. As we position ourselves to deliver on your ambitions through an integrated model, we are putting women entrepreneurs at the center. On the non-financial side, our entrepreneurs continue to receive market access support, incubation coaching, and digital enablement, technology transfer and export development, because if you have a good product, as we're saying, let's collaborate as the region, as the continent, and the globe, it means you need particular expertise and certain compliance that you must have for you to say, I'm going to be doing this with Zimbabwe, with SADC, with whoever that you're talking about. If, therefore, you do not understand the policies of that country and the regulations, it means you will not survive in business. Or you will be like the other farmer that we supported from Northwest Minister, and we got him a very big contract to supply beef. And I'm excited. I go around talking about this. No, we've got these farmers that are from cooperatives. This is what they are doing. 6 months down the line, they've collapsed. And I'm like, no, what happened? No, Minister, we could not meet the demand. We're expected to provide 100 cows every week. Because we are selfish people. They didn't even think about going to others that have. They wanted the money for themselves to a point that they lost the business. And this is the mentality that we must live. Kibuloi. It's a witchcraft. that you want everything to be yours. If it's not yours, it might as well not be there. You've got to learn the business of doing business. That in business, you cannot do it alone. You need others. Because when those opportunities arise, if they say we want 50 bags of potatoes here in Cape Town, they love fried chips so much. If they say they want 50 bags of potatoes every week and you produce 5, don't be scared to go to Makwelane for the 1 bag that they have, the 3. You collect so that you don't lose out. It's painful that I continue to engage with the industry and I will ask them, when I'm McDonald's, why do you source potatoes from Durban for people who are in Mthatha? I mean, like, there's lots of land here. And they tell me this sad story. Minister, your people do not meet the requirements and they cannot meet the demand. I'm like, what are you talking about? My people go there for 1 contract that is advertised. 35,000 people queuing for that contract. They don't think that they must work together, form a consortium or a cooperative to say, we're going to be here, we're going to have aggregators, so that even when government comes to assist us with the business development support, already we are organized. But you have not partnered with Amavila. You know Ivila? Those lazy people that sit in there. You don't partner with those. You partner with people who wake up every day, it's raining, it's hot, it's whatever, they go and do something. Whether that thing is going to give them profit or not, they don't know, but they have faith in what they have decided to do because they're going to make a difference. They're not going to sit and wait for the rams at 370 rands. They're going to make a difference. They're going to utilize their skill. They will learn from others, but they're going to produce what they can produce. And this is what we're calling for. If we are to be successful in challenging the stereotypes in the mining sector, we need women to be organized. Hey, if we talk about women in agriculture, we stand. Women in mining, we stand. Women in aibo. Ay, kaloku. Yes, I do understand you must diversify, but you diversify when you are established. At least there must be something that you are competent on in terms of business. Hi, Galele Bai. I know I belong to Galele Bai, but business does not need that. You only do that when business is established. And then you say, I want to venture into that. I buy 20%, I buy 10%. We can't be seeing the same women on everything. Because now I'm going to call them to say, these women that were empowered, why are they not putting money to invest in other women-owned businesses? Why are we complaining about access to funding? Because there are women who are funded by government who understand the challenge that women go through. Where are those women? What are they doing? So we have established the Women's Fund. We seed funding with 300 million rands. And I said to the team, you are going to go out there. You're going to leave these air-conditioned offices. You're going to engage with women to say, how must we design this fund? Because we've been coming up with funds, others are not performing well, but most importantly, they're not reaching the intended beneficiaries. Because they talk to someone that I don't know. Because now I look at the criteria, I'm like, we must have collateral. Bring 10%. So I asked my bosses there one day, when you say this entrepreneur that requires 500,000 must bring 10%, do you have 50,000 in your bank account? No, why don't you have, because you're getting paid every month. So why do you want to punish them? Because they have a business mind that says, I can do this. They're taking an opportunity to save government from spending on them on when there's not going to be return on investment, but they want to make a difference. Why do you want to punish them? They must bring, if they need 2 million, like in the mining space, definitely you need for exploration, those 2 million, 5 million. Where are they going to get it from? Those are the fine prints that says we don't need you. And we must challenge that. You must challenge that. When we say we've got to do away with the red tape, we need you to scrutinize all the regulations by government, all the laws by government, and the private sector to say, these are not talking to us. Government, we don't know who do you represent, but this is not us. Definitely, you may have another constituency. It is your right to do so. Don't betray the work that others died for. Don't be sellouts like that. That as long as I've voted, well, we no longer vote these days. But even those that have voted, it ends there. You vote and then you go home. Nothing follows up. What is the program of action? What improvement is going to make? Then you come back later, hey, that's Stella. She thinks she's in a in a beauty contest. That's all she knows. Hey, man. And then you decide what is that you want to measure me on, but you don't even know what is my mandate. We've got to take interest in what we do. And taking interest in what we do is when we begin to educate ourselves about the environment that we are trading in. It is very important to understand sector dynamics for you to be able to link. Why do we have to go to WEF? Why does Minister Tau does the work that he does, and the many other ministers? You must understand the global politics. How are they impacted? I don't want you to be politicians when I say this. Because people believe that every time I tell them about taking interest in following geopolitics, they think I want them to, there's many politicians, you'll come and threaten my job. I don't need you. I need you in business. Because you must make profit, you must be able to hire people so that they can vote for me. You getting profit, I get my vote, everybody gets happy because people have services. But for you to make those profits, you've got to make sure that the policy that I design talks to you. The funding instruments that we design talk to you. The curriculum that is taught to our children talks to the realities of our country. The fights that we see in Mozambique, how do they impact on us? So that we're able to plan and say, this poses a risk to South Africa, although we are not in Ghana, but those wars that are happening, they're affecting us. This is how they're going to affect us. Many people did not understand why we got involved in the Russian saga that we are being punished for. But Ramaphosa, what does he have to do with Ukraine and Russia? We are here hungry. Until they saw the prices of food, of oil going up, and they never understood. I hope they do now. That it's important that we must take interest because we are not living in an island. We are part of the globe. These are our neighboring countries. We trade with them. Therefore, when there's uncertainty, then it will spill over to us. That's why we adopted the government of national unity. When people said, ANC, we're not giving you any majority. We stepped up. We said 40% of South Africans have given us a mandate. It's the responsible thing because although they did not give us majority in terms of 50 above one, they gave us 40% to say lead those that we are putting there. And in that leadership, it required us to appreciate that even at policy level, we may have differences, but we all agreed that we've got to build an inclusive economy, and that all parties in the GNU agree to, which is what we're trying to do, bringing all parties, bringing all citizens to say, let's work together to achieve that. So the barriers that we're talking about will be addressed by both of us yourselves by identifying them, and then we take them and identify to say, Cabinet, Mr. President, there are these barriers in Minister Chikunga's department. In this legislation, clause so and so does not assist the women of our country to participate meaningfully in their economy. Therefore, let's repeal the legislation, and you must support it when we repeal. Co-chairs, as the portfolio, we seek this partnership with yourselves. We want to work with you because we see you as a powerful multi-sectoral platform that aligns policy, capital, and markets. And that also enables dialogue to translate into delivery. People complain that we like summits, we like meetings. If we don't engage like this, how are we going to go and improve? How are you going to know that there are these opportunities that they're talking about so that we can hold them accountable to say, you said, this is what you are doing. We want to see the people that are benefiting, or what is it that they don't have so that we help them to have it. Because if there's a market opportunity, we have a responsibility, NEF, SITFA, to make sure that businesses occupy. We must make them ready, not only for investment, but also for market readiness. This is why we know very well that this partnership is going to be long-term and impact-driven. Through it, we will institutionalize procurement pathways, we will strengthen gender-responsive financing, we'll expand supplier development, integrate township and artisanal mining into national value chains, and establish credible monitoring frameworks. Our commitment to women's inclusion is further strengthened through continental and global partnerships. You have seen President last year with Minister Parks when they signed the 8 billion US dollars. Did you see? You didn't see that? The money that is being... We signed an agreement with the African Export-Import Bank, the Afrexim Bank, about 8 billion US dollars, and then we're still gonna sit down and say so much goes to women-owned businesses, youth-owned businesses, especially in the medium, small, and micro level. You must take interest in those. Remember, I said you pay attention to what happens globally. So when we bring those networks, as we go up and down, you're gonna be asking questions. They're gonna say, I spent 50,000 rands flying. You must know, that's why they came here and put money. Because if we sit here and don't travel and engage, these investments are not gonna come here. And we are not going to sit here and not travel, because we have a responsibility to bring investors in South Africa, investors that must help us create jobs. So we are not sitting here, we're gonna be traveling. That 8 billion rands is what you must look at, together with the 100 billion rands now, not dollars, rands. That president announced 20 billion rands a year that we are doing with the Department of Trade Industry. Distinguished guests, transformation cannot be outsourced. Inclusion cannot be postponed. Empowerment cannot be optional. It must shape how we do business. It must guide how we allocate capital. It must define who sits on decision-making tables. Don't say, oh, why am I going to WEF? I'm going to WEF because I must sit there on the table so that they can come here. When women participate fully, communities thrive. When women own productive assets, households stabilize. When women lead enterprises, jobs are created. The inclusion of women in mining is not optional. It is an economic necessity, a social justice imperative, and core to our country's growth strategy. Let us move from pit to factory to the port. Not with exclusion, but with equity. Not with barriers, but with bridges. Not with promises, but with performance. Together, let us build a mining economy that reflects our democratic values and unlocks the full potential of South African women. I don't want to come here, co-chairs, and repeat the same thing next year. I want us to know how many women benefited out of everything that we have said here today. I know I get paid to talk, but my talk makes sense when there's action and evidence so that people can believe the story that I share with them. Thank you so much, Program Director.
A standing ovation indeed. Oh, so much has been shared. Honorable Minister, thank you so much. One of the key takeaways for me is the call for an active citizenship, a fully participative democracy, where we are commenting on the bills and shaping the policy through the channels that are made available to us. Thank you very much, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, as we transition towards the tail end of our program, let me first start off by saying thank you so much for staying the course. I know it's many, given the number of engagements, have engagements even this evening. And so this final panel that we're going to have is going to be very tight and very concise. I'm going to try to the best of my ability to land it in 20 minutes. One of our speakers will have to leave in the next 5 minutes. So I do want to quickly call up the panel so that I can give them an opportunity to have their say before they depart. And that, as we transition, of course, into a conversation on the actual funding opportunities. We've heard a lot of reference to the money. This is the conversation about the money. So let me appeal to you not to leave at this point, because this is the conversation where the rubber hits the road. So please do stay, and also be reminded that we do have a networking cocktail straight after this. So let me invite Madame Lindega Dzedze, Global Market Head, looking after strategic partnerships at Standard Bank. Madame Dzedze, are you with us? Thank you very much. Thank you for staying. I know your time is tight. So we've got Standard Bank. Let me invite Absa Bank, Mr. Khaleleto, the head of enterprise development. Thank you very much. My Nguni tongue always struggles with his surname, so I try to avoid it, but I can't. Khaleleto Tlawele. NEF, we've heard you being referenced quite a bit. Can we please invite Mr. Mziwabantu Daimane, the Chief Executive Officer? Let's give him a big round of applause, please. We also have DDG in the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, which has been referenced quite a lot. DDG, thank you for being here. That is Dr. Susan Mangole. Let's invite DDG. And then finally, the PIC is also here with us. And we have Madame Heidi Sternberg, who is a sector specialist in mining. Heidi, thank you for being here. Let's give a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm asking for the very last bit of attention, just for the next 20 to 25 minutes as we get through this panel. If we can just bring our audio levels down just a little bit so that we can then get into the conversation. Thank you so much. Can we please move the podium again? Thank you very much. Madam Lindega, I'm going to just ask one question of each panelist. So I'll give you the opportunity to go first. One of the things as we were preparing for this conversation that you were very passionate about is the idea of building ecosystems, and that really then speak to unlocking funding for entrepreneurs, but also supporting entrepreneurs holistically. Tell us a little bit about how Standard Bank thinks about building those ecosystems as a way of coming into this conversation.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank WECONA for organizing this. As long as we continue to have dialogues, that means...
Just a second, please. Ladies and gentlemen, kindly, ngiyacela. If we can just 20 more minutes. Thank you so much. Please go ahead, madam.
Thank you. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you to WECONA for...
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you to WECONA for organizing this. I always say as long as we continue to have dialogues, and that means the conversations are happening. And secondly, thank you, the Honorable Minister. I always see her everywhere. I wonder when she sleeps. I thought she'll be getting a break after G20, clearly not. But thank you to you for coming here today. And before I come back to what I want to talk about collaborative ecosystems, I think it's an opportune time. If you read the news, everything you hear from the peace deals in DRC and rare earth minerals that are important to the West, by that I mean United States. If you look at what happened from Germany, just allow me to read this because this is important. The reason I'm reading this is the question is, where are we as women? What I saw was from the Chancellor. They said Germany has made the mistake of ignoring Africa while others secured the critical minerals of the future. That ends now. My government will no longer send delegations. We will send engineers and capital to Africa. If we want Germany to keep producing the best cars in the world, our supply chain must start with sovereign and fair agreements in Congo, Namibia, and South Africa. Our industrial sovereignty depends on our presence in Africa. They're talking about, I don't know if you read that, but this is resource nationalization. And I'm going to come back to this question, and I always speak off the script, so Unomhlan and the team should know better. I just came off a meeting with the Minister of Minerals from Gabon earlier. We were talking about manganese. I think it was Exara. If you know anything, you'll know that. South Africa produces 38% of manganese for the global economy. South Africa is the largest producer of manganese. Gabon is the second largest. They produce 22. So that means South Africa and Gabon are responsible for 60% of the global production of manganese. 60. I can assure you now, the US gets 60% of their manganese from Gabon. That's why they were in Gabon.
Sure.
And my question is, I heard us talking about catering, talking about toilet paper and other things. Where are we and where do we want to be? And I'm not discounting anything that has to happen along the value line, but I'm just saying, where are we and where do we want to be in this critical conversation? Because now everyone is eyeing Africa and it's resource nationalization. I'll come back to the question that I was invited here for. So we hosted an event last year, and the reason we hosted it was to really get all of us together. The Honorable Minister spoke about funding, spoke about the private sector. We said, let's come together in a room. How do we collaborate as ABSA, Standard Bank and others to make sure that we build sustainable and successful, resilient women businesses? The reason for that is and I want to make sure that I leave you guys with a question of data and a question of reporting, is that when we met with the UN Women the other week, and I always bring my colleagues in BCB and enterprise development, and I say to them, speak to us as an entire organization so that we can see how we partner holistically, because we need to leverage everything that we have to partner with you, and we can see where we go. And it would be interesting to see what is ABSA doing. How many women are we all funding? Because we all come up with numbers,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And the reason I want to bring this up, and I thought I was going to talk about something else, but allow me to be provocative. I sit in the bank, and numbers don't lie. If you talk about sustainable finance, if you Google it now, you will see exactly what ABSA funds on book, that is on balance sheet and off balance sheet. What Standard Bank does, same, all of them. Why are we not doing the same for women?
Sure.
Why we're not doing the same? And the reason I'm asking that is data does not lie. And reporting, if it's standardized, will allow us to check where are we and where do we need to go. Because it's and my conversation was to say, I'm listening to the ministers speak. And I always say when I attend places, I always ask myself, when we leave here, please give me time, what is the so what of today? What are we going to do differently when we leave here? And what I'd like to pose, please allow me, is potentially there's an opportunity to engage. It's all these women groupings. WECONA, all of us, and engage private sector. And the reason I'm saying this is, I happen to operate across the continent. I can assure you, Mozambique issued a directive in terms of women leadership in the industry. Nigeria started working 20 years ago with the central bank governor. 20 years ago, they have 12 CEOs in Nigeria. And I'm saying that because those who make decisions at the top inform what happens at the bottom. But I'm going to come back to another thing that I wanted to talk about, is that what we wanted to do was, how do we partner to support and make sure that we're not all focusing at training, because women are overtrained. We're not all focusing, how do we make sure we do enough at the right levels? If ABSA is finding 5 of you, are we not finding the same women? Where's the data that comes into that? So mine is one, is that I think there's an opportunity to engage with the private sector as a collaborator. And then I'm going to come back to number 2 that I wanted to share, and then I know that I've overstepped my limit. I had the opportunity to work with the African Development Bank on the 30th of January. They were hosting and launching what is called NAFA. NAFA is the new African financial architecture. The current president of AFDB wants to use South Africa as the gateway. Firstly, to mobilize capital. That means the continent has the capital, is fragmented. If you look at how much, we have over $4 trillion, is fragmented. How do we come together to reduce risk? And then how do we scale? In that meeting, I had the pleasure of working. We had SIM, Standard Bank, ABSA, the regulators, pension funds, asset managers, everybody in the room. That's a platform that's already being built. My question is one, why are we not going there and making sure that women are in that agenda? Our finance minister said we need to make sure that women and youth are included. It has a potential to uplift the GDP. It de-risk our future. So why are we not participating in those? And the reason I'm saying that is there's a national dialogue, there's a continental dialogue that is being led by one of the biggest DFIs that is AAA rated on the continent, that speaks to bringing together the continent as one. What are we doing to make sure women and youth are part of that conversation? And I'm not saying this because, I'm just saying there's a point of action where we move from talking to what do we need to do differently. If we sit time and time and again, what do we need to do differently? And for me, the question I think is there's a conversation to be had. Maybe get us all in a room like AFDB did, and then see how do we move forward.
Thank you
I'm
very
sorry I
much.
spoke too much, but we are besebenza sonke ibintoni minister. Besenza into besenza I'm sure ibintoni kanani. Trade fair for women. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Thanks, Madam Lindega. And I think that the main point there is, are we moving from a data-dependent perspective? Because that's what drives coordination and organization. I'm going to jump all the way to Heidi for the next piece, and you'll let me know whenever you need to run. Yes, let's give her a big round of applause as she departs. Thank you very much. Heidi, you have one shot, one voice, so let's make sure that we can get as much in as possible. I'm interested in two things very quickly. How do we make sure that we are doing a better job at positioning women for institutional capital? And then the second thing I'd like you just to comment about is, tell us a little bit about the PIC's new early stage mining fund and how the women in this room can access it.
Sure, thanks so much everybody, and I'm going to try and be brief. But when I thought about this, the shift from developmental capital to institutional capital doesn't have a gender lens. It's not about men or women. I think we have to look at it quite holistically. And we've got to understand the capital logic. Capital likes certainty, capital likes plans to have been made in place. It likes risk-adjusted returns. It likes governance. It likes scalability, and it likes clear downside protection. And those things are not male or female based. They certainly go across the value chain. So women entrepreneurs often get channeled into developmental capital, not because their businesses are weaker, but because they are presented as social outcomes, and rather than commercial propositions. Sure. And I think the message needs to be that this is a strong business that also has developmental impact and not the other way around. So, I mean, we all know good fundamentals of a good business. There need to be audited financials. There need to be clear economies of scale and cash flow visibility. And these are the fundamentals that need to be in place right from the beginning. I think more important also is from a governance perspective, there needs to be an active board. There needs to be clear decision-making and succession clarity. And these things will all give the institutional investors comfort that, the project that is being presented will have good financial outcomes at the end of the day. Because institutional capital is not against women-led businesses, but it hates opacity.
Got you.
Informality and unscalable stories. And this comes back to the scalable story.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's just really quickly in a nutshell. I think more importantly, I'd love to talk to you about our newly launched early stage mining fund. In South Africa, we can talk about beneficiation and all those nice things, but if there's no exploration, there's not going to be any mining, and then there's not going to be any beneficiation at the end of the day. And seriously, so little capital is going into the early stage exploration sector in South Africa. We've got a tiny 400 million rand fund run by the IDC and the DMRE. That's absolutely great, but we need 12 billion rand per year going into this section. And so we really, really are a long way off that mark. So this is where the PIC comes to the fore. We're not looking at really early stage exploration like the IDC Junior Mining Fund is looking at. We're looking at later stage projects that are at least at a scoping stage, and up to and including the bankable feasibility stage, because we see that this is one sector that really does need funding, and there are very few funders in the market to take the projects from discovery up to a place where all the bankers that I'm sitting with here on this panel are able to invest in them. So this fund is aimed specifically at that, but I think I need to make a big mention that our client, the GEPF, wants this to be into a fund of funds type structure.
Sure. Yeah.
So we're looking at catalyzing mining funds in South Africa to come to the party, to come and apply for funding at the PRC. Obviously, the PRC can't be the only funder, so we're hoping to catalyze a lot more money into it. We've got a 1.5 billion rand fund at the moment, and we're hoping to only sort of be 20% of the funding. So hopefully this will at least catalyze 3 or 4 billion rand into this very, very capital thirsty sector.
Thank you
so
very much, Heidi. I think that's really encouraging. It does deserve a round of applause to hear that there are attempts to really look at funding that is beyond just early stage exploration and looking at other opportunities in the value chain. DDG, let me come to you and put the one question that I'll give to you this evening. And that is, when you look at the DTIC's funding and other incentive instruments in the market targeted at mining, which are proving to be the most effective, and how do we get a greater uptake for women in these spaces?
Thank you so much, and all protocol observed. Good evening, Minister. I think one of the key things about access to funding, the DTIC offers an incentive as well as the loans through the DFIs. But then I guess one of the key things is that collaboration is key. So what we normally do, we work with either the banks, but mainly with the DFIs to establish women-owned, women empowerment funds. But then from the DTIC's point of view, we do prioritize women-owned businesses, especially in mining. But then we support beneficiation. I think what Heidi touched on is that IDC offers for junior, for exploration. But what is key is that the key thing is that we cannot keep on exporting dust. What we need to then provide is to actually beneficiate. So the manufacturing support program support beneficiation of that. As we go to the electric cars and just transition, we want to see women-owned businesses that participate in that. We do have several support. I think one of the key one is the manufacturing support, but also the recently announced program by the president is aimed at supporting women-owned businesses to be able to participate in export market, especially in Africa. We had the women empowerment protocol, but what is key is that while we offer funding, the key thing is access to market. And I think one of the key things is that how do we close those barriers? So the non-financial support offered by the NEF, the IDC, and CETFA is very important. And the one key thing is access to capability that most of us we ignore, because the minute you then say to a women-owned, what we've seen is that most of them that have been supported, they either being asked to provide certain things, and then they end up either being cancelled or being like sort of discontinued. So what we are working on is that we are looking at access to capability in partnership with CETFA, in partnership with different entities, because we do not want to see women in mining failing. And then the other key element is that we need to also make sure that as we transition through critical minerals, we need to make sure that we include women. It becomes inclusive. We can't implement a mining strategy or a beneficiation strategy that does not have women. I think one of the other element is what Minister Ndabeni touched on, to say, with the Transformation Fund, we're looking at aggregating various funding, because the problem is not access to funding. The problem is the women knowing where to go when they require funding, where to go. They will get a loan from a bank, they will get another loan, but then knowing that the DTIC or one of the enterprise and supplier development offer a grant, they are able to then blend that. So the fund is aimed at collaborating with private sector. It's a public and private collaboration to make sure that we increase access to funding. Thanks.
DTG, thank you very much. And again, you bring to the surface a blended financing approach that not only speaks to a broad transformation agenda, but particularly to beneficiation and inclusion. I want to build on that a little bit with yourself, please, Mr. Daimani, because the question I'd like to bring to you is, the NEF has been mentioned a few times today. One would imagine that one of the balancing acts you've got to hit right is commercial viability and transformation at the same time. Talk to us a little bit about how that's going, and what advice would you have for the women entrepreneurs who should be knocking on the NEF doors to unlock more funding?
Thank you very much, and greetings, Minister, and all protocol observed. I think one of the encouraging aspects of this particular dialogue is the diversity of the participants. If you look, for instance, the conversation that happened with Harmony and Exaro, and now we're having the funders. Because if we are going to talk about sustainability for women businesses, you have to actually balance the access to market with the funding. Because before we talk to the sustainability of the business as whether the funding is going to be sustainable or not, you need to look at whether these businesses have access to market. Sure. And do they have diversity of market? Yeah. And that is why I'm hoping that after these conversations, there will be those partnerships. We do need partnerships with the likes of Harmony and Exaro and other mining houses here for us to be able to provide the necessary support that is required by women-owned businesses in order to be successful. Now, when it comes to sustainability of funding, I think Minister Ndabeni actually touched on this in terms of what government can provide through the various DFIs. We've got SIFTA, we've got the NEF, we've got the IDC, the PIC, and so on. So ensuring that there is that availability of funding, and also in terms of the instruments which are available, that you should not only be funding this through commercial loans. Yeah. You need to have concessionary instruments, you need to have grants, you do need to have equity instruments as well. You need to ensure that you take care of what the minister talked about when it comes to own contribution. Yeah. Businesses, particularly businesses that are growing, do not have access to own contribution, which is why even on the commercial side, some of the clients that we fund to ensure that they are sustainable, we actually work with the banks. We work very closely, for instance, with my colleague here, KK from ABSA. We've forged partnerships with the banks to make sure that there is that seamless collaborations, because there is a reason why you have DFIs, there is a reason why we have the banks. Yeah. And those institutions, they need to understand that we are not in a competition, but we are in an environment or an ecosystem where we work together. And as institutions, we need to be the ones who structure those arrangements, because the entrepreneurs are not able to do it themselves. So that when we offer those services, there are structures and they talk to the needs of those businesses.
Thank you very much. It's so beautiful to follow the conversation, because what Madame Zete started off with was that confrontation to ecosystem thinking, and to hear that there are real relational capacity in terms of the institutions, even on this panel, that you do work together is quite encouraging. Let me then, Mr. Khalile, to just test it a little bit more in your final comment. One of the things that Mr. Damani raises is the idea of working more intentionally with DFIs, who would come in and bring a different type of capital and speak to the risk issue in a different way. The extent to which you're working with DFIs to accelerate funding to women, I'd like to hear a comment on that. But also, as a parting shot, what do you look for in women entrepreneurs in the mining sector that gives you confidence that there is growth potential and long-term viability behind this particular business that is sufficient for you to unlock the funding?
Yeah, being a commercial banker in the mining environment is not the easiest. I must say, I'd like to dial it down to focus on the practicalities. Yeah. So mining is a brutally patriarchal ecosystem. Yeah. You just have to go onto a mine site and you will realize that it was never designed to have meaningful participation by women. And that is the reality.
Yeah.
So from the facilities that you have, right up to the skill set. So we want to take away this romantic idea around mining. It is about being extremely involved. There's a lot of detail that is involved in mining. You could be losing 10 liters of diesel a day, and it would seem to be something minimal, but at the end of the month, it has given you a very big dent.
Yeah.
So the biggest role we play is the technical assistance that we provide. We go on site. When I'm looking around and I see some of the clients that I have, it's not often that we see each other in suits. We see each other in hard hats and in safety boots, because that is where the actual difference is made. When you go on site, you'll see that there is a collusive and very, very detrimental approach to exclusion of not only Africans, but women in particular.
Sure.
So I'd like to take the opportunity to say, stop thinking about being in a boardroom. Think about being on site. Think about being in the detail. Think about actually building ecosystems in the supply chain. You know, simple things like when you order a piece of equipment, don't think that if you are not close to the ecosystem, that you will receive your article in 3 months. In some instances, you will receive it in 7 months, and by that time, you've already piled up penalties.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very brutal environment, and what we need is resilience and an eye for detail. You need to be involved. You cannot have managers or your proxies running around. Some of the biggest tragedies that we've seen are when there was misplaced trust. So I'm not coming here to say that there isn't money. I've burned a lot in terms of my engagements with credit, because at the end of the day, it is not only about giving the money, it's about understanding the ecosystem that you are putting money into. So I would advise any aspirant or even a current active participant to make sure that they are close to the detail, to make sure that they build an ecosystem that will be supportive to them, because small things can actually bring you down. A small hydraulic hose that all of a sudden is in the wrong place, and you are parked for 5 hours and you are paying significant penalties. Those are some of the things that we see on a daily basis that we need to be able to become aware of. That is why a lot of our investment is actually in service providers who are on site with our mining clients to make sure that those little or not so little collusive and destructive behaviors are actually called out, and you are able to defend your clients and make sure that they are actually receiving significant value.
Sure. It's an incredible way of sobering us up in the room in terms of the toughness of the industry, and to hear it coming from a commercial banking voice is quite sobering. Thank you very much. The devil's in the detail, as they say. I do want to apologize that we don't have enough time. Mining Indaba is such like this, that there are so many engagements. But I do want to thank my panelists. Can I ask that we give them a big round of applause? And I'm going to invite them to take a photo, so if they could kindly please stand and step into the light. I am going to invite co-chair as soon as the picture is done. Just give me a second. Give me a second. Yes. Yeah. We're going to invite our co-chair, Namhla Mniki, to officially close us off. I know that our ministers are still with us, but we are officially going to close. We're inviting you honorable ministers to please join us in the photograph, if you will. And once Madam Namhla has spoken, that will be the end of my contribution this evening. So thank you very much from me for the opportunity to serve you today.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been awesome. Can we give Nozi an incredible round of applause? I'm going to ask you to give her another one, but I know our two ministers are on their way out, and I would like us to just rise up and allow them to exit through this door and thank them incredibly for gracing us. Isn't it incredible that we have ministers so committed that they would be here until the end of the day? We are so grateful to Honorable Chikunga, who is the Minister of the Minister in the Department, Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. We are so grateful to Minister Ndabeni. Thank you so much, Minister. We are so grateful to Minister Ndabeni, who is the Minister in the Department of Small Business Development. And she's still chatting up her storm there, so we'll clap until she walks out. Can we continue to clap for them, please? All right, guys, we're almost done. Food is outside, and they are starting to serve it in the next 2 minutes. So what I'm about to do, thank you so much, Minister. So would you bear with me just on grounds? We can continue to stand, but please bear with me on grounds. Oh, wow. Am I going to get your attention at all? We're trying to do a vote of thanks and a closure. Okay, are you with me? Just 2 more minutes, and then we'll go and socialize outside. My name is Namhla Mnegi, as has been said. I'm co-chair of the Women Economic Assembly. I do want to hear an incredible, resounding round of applause for you, for being the champions who have stayed here until the end of the proceedings. Now, you know that they say that in gratitude there's multiplication. It's really important that we begin to recognize a number of people who made, a number of institutions who made this particular occasion possible. Of course, I've already recognized Minister Chikunga and her whole team. We had the Chief of Staff here from the Department of Women. We had the DDG here. And Minister left us with a word that said that critical minerals have to have women and youth at the forefront, and that the race really for global ownership of these critical minerals is on, and we'd better position ourselves well. We also had the Minister of the Department of Small Business Development. Her DG was here, her advisors were here, and we are so privileged as well that we had them. So can we just clock it for them? We're not clapping anymore, we're clocking it. It is clocking it, right? Like I'm already at that age where I have to verify, am I saying the right thing? All right. Then, of course, I want to mention, really, this is an honorable mention to our colleagues at SITFA who made this possible. SITFA was our core sponsor. We had the chairperson of the Ethics Committee, Transformation and Ethics Committee here. We've got the CEO. I haven't seen him because, oh, there he is. We have the CEO from SITFA here. He brought his whole team here, including Tabi, who made all this possible. CEO, we're so grateful. We're delighted that we have the possibility of continuing to partner with you in this important work. The Minerals Council is here, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to see them. Where are they? They've left already, but Mr. Tebelo Chabana, who's the Senior Executive for Public Affairs, was here. The Minerals Council has continued to be committed to a gender transformation agenda in minerals. And so they are another partner of ours that's really, really important. We had also the Council General for Angola. We had the Deputy Chairperson of the National House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders. We had quite a number of DGGs, but also we had the CEO of this venue that we are in, and I want us to clock it for him specifically because they made this meeting possible. Now listen, our speakers were phenomenal, yes or no? Yes. And we are delighted that they were here. Shall we give them a proper round of applause, right? Because this clocking it thing, right? We had so much from you. We are so honored and so enriched by all of your inputs. Thank you so, so, so much. And then, of course, Madam Nozipho Chabalala, I told you, I would say let's dance if we had time in your honor, but thank you so much. You were phenomenal. We appreciate the fact that you are always available and that you carry the space and the room so excellently. Thank you for your grace. Those of you who don't facilitate don't understand how difficult it is to hold a room. And she's gonna go and she'll need a bath and she'll need to take a long nap because of how hard it is. And so we truly, truly value your partnership and your time with us. Now listen, you guys. There's a group of women who are WECONA women who made this possible. Ask Gertrude, where are you? Ask Juliet, where are you? Where are they? I'm going to mention them by name, but I'm mentioning them on behalf of their teams because each of them were working with teams. Ask Juliet is somewhere here. Ask Stephanie. Stephanie, where are you? Oh, you guys want to come in the front? I just want you guys to see these women. Ask Margaret is over there. Ask Margaret, come in front. Tando, come in front. We also had Pamelo come in front. I'm not mentioning everyone. But I want to let you know that these ladies didn't have December because they've been working on this project the whole of December. That's our Snomvula from the Department of Small Business Development. And they continue to work volunteering their time, their expertise. They lead businesses, they lead associations, and they've just continued to be incredible. Can we just stop for a minute and give them a proper round of applause? Hooray to you, ladies. Congratulations. Silapangoku. And we made it happen, right? Oh, most of you guys made it happen. And then, of course, my coach. There's a lot of WECONA people here. We honor you. Thank you so much for continuing to do the work that you do. And we really, really appreciate you. But last and not least, we appreciate you for being in this room. So now you will have an opportunity to go out and have a little bit of something to eat. We are going to be in a big hurry because they're closing at 9. And I wish you all the best in the work that you are doing. And this is the end of the day to say, we are going to ensure that the mining sector transforms and that we beneficiate, that we move from pit to factory to pot. Here for WECONA. Thank you guys. We're eating outside.